J.C. Newman Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts, and the Gurkha Cigar Studio in beautiful British Columbia. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Mitchell Santaga.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTobacco.com. I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts, in the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios, and I'm joined once again by our great friend from the north. That's right, it's Mr. Mitchell Santaga in the Gurkha Cigar Studios in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. The not-so-great white north in Vancouver, as we discussed before the show. But here he is, you know, as Coop calls him, Boy Wonder, you know. He's here. So, how are you, Mitchell? You're not smoking tonight, which I'm a little peeved about. I'm not going to fucking lie to you. But, I mean, we're here, so I got to deal with it.
Yeah, I showed up. That was the best I could get tonight. It is a beautiful day. Yesterday, pouring rain. Today,
for effort.
Absolutely beautiful sunshine for the week. But, yeah, you know, as you'll soon find out, babysitters can be unfortunately unreliable at times, and
oh, I believe it.
And yeah, you know, they just sometimes call the
yeah,
night
and you get the
before
shit
saying,
under the stick. I get it. I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
can't.
Don't take it personally, Mitchell. You got to
No,
have
I
some
know.
thicker skin.
For sure.
I know. You're good.
But
I'm just giving you a hard time because you know you.
I wish I was.
You're
smoking.
easy.
I
You're easy
in
target.
yesterday, because I knew yesterday that they were sick. I actually specifically smoked the new Micarita Black. Papa
Oh,
Saka.
you have. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
So
what did you
smoked
think of this cigar? Hold on. What did you think of it?
You know, I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to give too much away. I enjoyed it.
Keep it close to the vest. I get it. All right.
I enjoyed it. You know, it's Steve makes great stuff. I don't think I've
You
smoked.
don't have to kiss his ass just because he can hear you in the green room. I mean, you can just say, you know, if it's not good.
Yeah, no, hey, you know, I said the same thing about our guest last week too. No, I don't think I've smoked anything I've disliked from Steve. Let's
Okay.
just say that. There's definitely stuff that I've liked more or less.
Uh-huh.
You know, for me personally, the Red Meat Lovers Club, for example, not fully up my alley. I thought it would be.
It's not for
I've
everybody.
smoked a couple Vitolas, not up my alley. But Sin, you know, Micarita, all of that. Honestly, like the whole rest of the line is just lights out. I haven't smoked every single one of his what are they, like the Now Leave Me the Hell Alones and the
Moisture de
Kacatoa.
Saka. Yeah.
Moistures,
Yeah.
yes. I haven't smoked all the Moistures. I think I've gotten my hands on one or two Moistures. Again, you know, each one so unique in itself, being that, you know, whatever. Steve's kind of.
Do you know what I love about this rant? I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you know what I love about this rant right now? Is
What?
that this was supposed to be like unrelated to the rest of the show, banter, and right now, what you're doing in front of a large audience, is you're just talking about how much you love Steve.
Just fanboying. Just fanboying.
And you know that's a rookie move. You know that's cigar media 101. You know, I mean you're getting ready to, like, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but you know it's like you're gonna drop your load soon. I mean, you know, the show hasn't even started yet. I mean, you're getting all excited.
Well, you
You're
know,
talking
I
about
can't
every
smoke.
size, and it's
I
like,
can't smoke, so I gotta reminisce about my
I didn't even bring him in yet, and you're already getting all, you know. I know. You're excited. I know. You're excited.
Yeah.
It's all right. Well, let's bring him in. I don't want to keep the man in the cage anymore. Who here is over the age of 40 and remembers Kiss? Well, I know you're not you, Mitchell, but you are musically inclined, so I know you know. But for those older folks in the generations, all right, Detroit, you wanted the best. You got the best. The hottest man in the business. Steve Saka. I've never done that for anyone else, and I probably never will again. But there he is. It's Steve. You know, it's one of the biggest shows of the year we do is with Steve. I mean, it's, you know, it's Steve.
Oh, hey.
He's a legend. And here he is on his phone, you know, like he's not even here. He doesn't even care.
What's going on, man? I gotta, you know, dude, I'm getting crushed in my survival pool this year. My God.
Steve. So, before you say anything, I'm gonna set the tone for you, and then I'm gonna let you take it how you want. If you don't like it, you can send it right on back.
All right.
Ron Burgundy said that once. This is not my words. This is Steve's words. I want to make this very clear. I thought his last appearance was great, and I didn't give him any shit for it. But he gave himself shit when I saw him at TPE. And all year that I've seen him, he has reminded me that he was
it
not
TPE?
happy.
I thought it was PCA.
Now, you brought it up at TPE, and you were
Okay.
like, I didn't like that episode. And then I saw you at PCA, and you're like, when are we doing that? Because I want my shot at redemption. And then I scheduled you in. And but you are the one who said, I want to redo the show. You were not happy with your appearance last time, even though it was great.
I
So
can't redo it. It's already there. People can go back and watch it.
you can
I don't know,
compare it.
I just felt I felt that I was listless. I felt that I wasn't really doing what I normally do. You know what I mean? And I didn't watch it, right? Because I already felt like it was a train wreck when I got off it. So
Right.
no reason to go back and look at the gore again. But I just knew when we were done, I was kind of like, yeah, that was okay. That wasn't all that good. And the truth is, I really blamed it on you because you're just a lousy interviewer. But I didn't want to say that. So I figured I'm going to shoulder the burden, say, hey, the show sucked. It was me. I was flat. So, let's take another stab at this and see if we can make it a little punchier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I know you also were like, not, I don't want to say rushed, but we didn't have the time we wanted last time. I know you had the U-boat launch right after, so yeah, there was some stuff.
Was that when we did it? Was the U-boat launch last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you forgot, and like 2 days before, you're like, I got to do the U-boat, and I was like, well, I'm like, we could start it earlier, and you were like, okay, and but yeah, so here we are tonight. We got nothing else going on. We got plenty of time. I can ask you all the questions about all the cigars that we've been talking about all year. There's
drink, because I don't have to go on and sling cigars for our friends at Rockies, right?
Yeah. So, what do you got? Noah's Mill?
No, tonight I am drinking Lagavulin Distillers Edition.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Very nice. Very nice.
Some lager.
Yeah.
How do you find it compared to the classic 16?
So the Distillers Edition, it's finished in those Pedro Jimenez casks.
Yeah, the PX gas.
Right. So it's got that kind of sherry finish to it. So it kind of softens it. It mellows it. It cuts down on the amount of smoke and peatiness. Now, Log is probably my favorite distillery. So like 3 of my top probably 20 scotches. The 16, I like the new Offerman edition a lot, and I like this one a lot. So it's genuinely one of my favorites. But I think of the 3 varieties, I think this one pairs the best with cigars because it knocks the smokiness and the peat down a touch, and it increases the sweetness level. And sweet always goes better with cigars. So it's one of my favorite sipping scotches when I smoke a cigar.
Yeah, I'd say in general, Laga is probably in terms of Isla's, probably my go-to. That 16. I've had the Freugard bag, a few others. I think it comes out the most balanced, even at the 16 compared to a lot of the other stuff.
If you're a heavy Isla guy, they'll say it isn't smoke enough, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They always go for the art bag. They go for the Lefroy. They go for the crazy Octomora, whatever it is. I can never pronounce it. You know what I mean? But I don't think that, and as much as I love all those scotches, I don't think they pair as well with a cigar because I think they just tend to overpower it. You know what I mean? Where with this Distiller's Edition being softened in the sherry cask for the finishing, I think it just helps provide a little bit more balance, and it lets the cigar, it gives you a better contrast, in my opinion.
That's fair. Are you drinking, Matt?
I'm not actually. I'm gonna be honest with you. It totally spaced on it, and I wish that I had grabbed some bourbon, actually, because this is a great night for it. And I forgot.
Well, you can go get some now. We'll wait. Now, look, these people will wait. What else I got to do?
Send Nicole. She'll bring you a dram.
If it's a Wednesday night and they're watching us, they don't got jack shit to do. So for you to steal away for a minute or two to go grab a bottle, it'll be fine. They won't care.
Well, apparently Nicole's watching, and she's already offered to get me something. So if she was to bring me, let's see.
Well, now you're making demands. Like you're like, just be happy she's bringing you something. Now you're like, well, I'd really like her to bring me. Oh, God.
there might be an open bottle of E.H. Taylor small batch, or a Smoke Wagon small batch. Surprise me. That's what I'll say.
Boom. There
Boom.
it is.
Boom. Let's see what happens. I don't know.
Delicious stuff.
Bring
E.H.
it
Taylor, one of my favorite bourbons of all time.
in the Blanton's glass because it's got that. I like that
Oh
glass.
my God,
Princess
dude, you really are pushing it.
I know.
Princess Matthew.
Well, I think after today, I think I've earned that. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But anyway, we'll see what happens. And maybe we can all get drunk together. Well, I don't know, Mitchell. You're not drinking, right? I forgot.
No, I'm not. This is not pure vodka. This is just water.
Okay, all right. I just want to make
No
sure.
cigars, no booze. What is this? Like the Mormon Cigar Podcast? What is this?
This is Cigars brought to you by Canada, where taxes stop you from doing anything.
That's true, though. The sad thing is, it's true. It's insane. Steve, I'll get drunk with you. It's all good. We'll do this. We got time. In fact, Nicole already told me. She's like, "Listen, Steve's coming on tonight. Take your time." I'm like, "All right."
Well, thank you, Nicole.
Yeah. See, she was thinking about you. She didn't want you to feel rushed this time. So
There you go.
you know.
What do we light up tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what we're lighting up, and I can't tell you what we're lighting up without talking about some of our friends. Mitchell, you know who we're talking about. Who are we talking about?
The number 2 guys cigars.com.
That's right, the number 2 guyscigars.com. One of the biggest and best place to buy your cigars. That's right, with an amazing collection of cigars and cigar accessories from all over the industry. It's only at the number 2 guyscigars.com. That's where you need to go. And if you like Steve's cigars, that's one of the best places to go because I think, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you know the answer, I think they carry just about everything you make.
Yeah, they carry a pretty wide plethora.
Yep.
It goes in and out of stock, but if they're out of stock, they tend to replenish pretty promptly.
Yeah, they're pretty good about it. I mean, you have to say, they're my local shop up here too. Most people probably know who they are. Thank you very much. Look at that, deliveries here. Bing. It's like Drizzly,
Got the Taylor.
Don't forget to tip your server.
Oh, she'll get tipped. Don't worry, she'll get taken care of.
I didn't even bring that up. I don't even like where that's at.
I know. See, you did it. You did it, Steve.
Oh my God.
But yeah, top-notch organization, 2guyscigars.com. Head over there now today. I am smoking the Papa Saka. You guys, I know you know this. I don't have to tell you anything about it because Steve probably will, most likely. But I got it right here. Fantastic cigar. This just came out. Steve, when did these ship? August? So these are nice and fresh still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when we started shipping them. August. It all kind of blends together. I can't remember anything anymore.
Yeah. The older I get,
a lot of
understand
releases
that.
this year.
Yeah, a lot of releases.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot to
lot of
digest with you, Steve.
Stupid amount, actually.
You think it
would have.
was it too much? Do you think it was too much? You
It was
personally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost killed me. And it's not even over. We got Halligan dropping as a store exclusive. I've got Popetta sitting in my warehouse that I haven't even shipped yet, even though we got tons of orders for it. We've got the Holiday Stillwell still dropping, and we got something else. What? Oh, Wagashi. So there you go. I got 4.
That's for this year.
Yeah, so I got 4 more cigars to still totally different blends to pump out, and we're still in the process of shipping Red Meat Lovers and the initial orders of Krakatoa. So yeah, it's been a if you actually add it all up, I think I did it like a few months ago. I think we came up with like 23 different things this year.
Wow.
It's insanity. Yeah, it's
Epic year.
That's
Epic year.
crazy.
It's too much, to be honest with you. It just kind of the way things worked. You had the COVID backup, so things got kind of slowed up, right? And then everybody's been waiting so long for whatever it was. And then you have all the repeat shop exclusives because they never seem to die, right? They're like, what, Chucky or something? I mean, they just don't go away. And it's just too much. Look, next year everybody's been going, is Saka dead? Because There's not nearly as we'll still have a lot of interesting stuff, but it's nothing like this year. This year is the watershed moment. In fact, I don't know that there'll ever be another year like this year because just commercially, it's like you can only sell these retailers so many cigars. They only have so much shelf space. And it'd be okay if something like was sucky and was dying, and then they would be like taking that piece of shit off the shelf and replacing it with my new piece of shit. But that isn't the case. So it just gets to a point where the portfolio has just gotten so large that it becomes a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I could see that. And I remember we had this conversation. I don't know if it was when you were on the show last time or if it was in one of the trade show interviews, but I remember we briefly talked, and it was right after. I think it was in like 21, 22. No, no, because last year on the show, so I think it was like a trade show, like 21. And I remember you saying like, the next few years, back then, the next few years, it's going to be very interesting to see because there's going to be a lot of stuff that, kind of comes out. Prices of the cigars and tobacco and operating costs and inflation all going to go up. And all of that came true. I mean, we've watched that happen the last couple of years. So, I mean, you were really spot on with that. And it's true. We saw kind of quietness at the 21 show. I think people were, like, okay, this COVID thing, all right, we out of the woods yet? And then 22, people were starting to feel comfortable again. And then 23, we got to the show, and it was just like, I mean, you had a lot, but you weren't the only one. I don't think anyone had quite as much as you did, but there was a lot of brands out there that dropped, multiple lines, core lines, plus a limited edition that we saw. So, yeah, it was a heavy year all around.
And the funny part is, I mean, it's been relatively a down year. So, I mean, comparing and contrasting to 21, 22. So it's been even more. You have more new product in the marketplace, but yet the competition's been even fiercer.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, I mean, the fact that we've managed to do as well as we have done, we're just peaking at the right moment. You know what I mean? So you come into a year that's a down year, but we're also peaking simultaneous. So we get to basically bypass the down year, and we get to have an amazing year. But across the board, I mean, I don't know what people say out loud, but I know what they say behind the scenes, and it's been a rough year for a lot of companies.
Yeah,
it really has. And I mean, it's not dismal. The world's not falling apart or anything, but at the same time, it's for most companies, most companies are below their 22 numbers. I mean, we're way up double digits, but again, it's just because we're small and peaking. You know what I mean? I mean, I hope we're not peaking. I hope we still got more room to go, but we're in that call it the hockey stick moment. You know what I mean?
right.
So for us, it worked out okay. But yeah, it's a crazy year, and you also have to look. You're also constantly just when you have so much. What do you talk about? Do I talk about Red Meat Lovers? Do I talk about Mickey Rita Black? Do I talk about the new Krakatoa? Do I talk about Popetta? Do I talk about the 2 new sizes in U-boat? Do I talk about this Halligan thing that I barely talked about at all? You know what I mean? It's like It's such a laundry list of stuff. And I mean, look, and like 2 of the exclusives this year, because they were the second year, were even better than the original year. So the Barba Amaria that we released this year was better than the Barba Amaria we released last year. And the Feral 100s that we released this year were better than the Feral 100s last year. And that's just kind of normal because, once you go through that first production, I start to say, okay, we can do a little better. We can change this slightly. We can make it a little tighter. Still the same cigar, but just better, better seasoned. So even the stuff that was the repeat release stuff was better. I mean, Don Derma Golden Child. I mean, that just kind of was like a blink of the eye now. So it's been a tough year because it's very hard from a messaging point of view to know what to focus on. And it becomes hard for the retailers too. We got the Mickey Rita, both the blue and the black unicorn. Couldn't just have one. No, I had to do both. You know what I mean? It's like just kind of a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, that's true. I remember when you made that first post with everything you were bringing to the PCA, and I saw the 2 unicorns. I go, wait a minute, he's got 2 unicorns he's bringing? Wow. And, you know,
But part of it's because I know the consumers, right? There's going to be a group of people who are going to absolutely love the black unicorn.
of
There's going to
course.
be a group of people who are going to absolutely love the blue unicorn, and there'll be a few people that love both. But most consumers aren't that way. Most consumers have a kind of a profile of what they like to smoke, right? And you couldn't get two more divergent brands. Divergent, the right word, or am I just using that improperly? You couldn't get two more different blends than the Brulee Blue blend versus the Mi Querida Black blend, right?
Right.
So it's like for like almost two totally different consumers for the majority of consumers. So it was kind of why I'm like, I want to do both. So that way there's something for the mild, creamy guys, and then there's also something for the strong, full-bodied guys.
And if
You
you
know?
need that spoon fed to you, for those listening at home, that means that Steve is thinking about you. You know, he's
Oh, and I'm
put,
also thinking of my bank account. So let's
well,
not think this is some sort of charitable act or anything.
one hand washes the other,
Right?
Steve.
Yeah.
Let's not forget. But yeah, it was exciting to see. It was cool to see, and I know those have all most of that stuff has all dropped now at retailers. Um, and you also made another announcement recently, which we'll get into in a moment, and then I have some other questions about some other projects to talk about. But I don't even know if I asked you before we get too far ahead of ourselves, so we can wrap this part of the show up. What are you smoking?
I'm smoking Krakatoa.
Okay, all right, nice. That's a good cigar. And as
I would have
always,
been smoking this.
you would have been smoking it. Yeah, would have. Keyword would have.
Would
But you're
would
but
have
you're
been.
not.
I knew it was
I can
going to
tell
be a
you,
nice long show, but
I don't know if you can handle that cigar.
those
That
those
cigar might be
those
too much for
age
you.
those age out so beautifully. I literally smoked one. When did I smoke one? I smoked one recently. Oh, I think it was when I was in California. We had that dinner, and it's so rare that I get a chance to sit down and smoke a Paladin because it's such a long cigar and it's so expensive, and I just don't want to waste it. And I actually had the opportunity at the dinner because it was one of the cigars we served at the dinner to smoke one,
Yeah.
and I remember as I was finishing, I looked at Laughter. I go, man, this is fucking great, man. I mean, this is like really, really, really good. They age out so nicely. It's a really, I know I'm being self-serving here, but it was genuinely, it was one
I,
of the, when a cigar is really good, how you just kind of, you stop and you pause and you look at it, kind of like, why is this one so good? You know what I mean? You kind of like turn it in your hand and you just kind of keep staring at it like, okay, these are good, but why this one is it so good? And I was having that kind of like moment with it. They aged out so nice. In
how much
fact,
age was on that?
I'm gonna increase the aging time even longer, I think.
You know what's funny is there's 2 times that I got William Cooper to come to me and say you were right, and both of those times each of those involved one of your cigars.
Really?
And yes, and specifically it was, and we've talked about this, so this isn't like a secret or anything. We've talked about this on the other show.
Let me bet
Um,
on one of them is before you say it out loud.
okay, go ahead. Yeah, this will be fun.
Bet one of them was the Sin Compromiso blend.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for most media blogger guys, they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't like super strong and super robust, and there wasn't like super strong notes, but yet it wasn't mild and creamy and light and effervescent. It was kind of this thing in the middle, and it had a lot of like light nuances, and I think it got lost on a lot of bloggers when they first smoked it in the mix of everything else that was new. And I think quite a few. I know it's true with consumers. Like it obviously shot out like a cannon when it first came out, but I'm seeing it in my own numbers. A lot of people are now coming back to Sin Compromiso, going, "Wow, this really is an amazing cigar, and it has a place for them in their portfolio." And I think that's true with some of the media people too. Not that it got bad reviews, it didn't, but it didn't get as warmly welcomed as some of my other releases.
So it was 2 different cigars that I smoked, and I said, "Wow, this is really good." This, I think at the time, "Oh, wow, this has a chance to be on the list this year." And Coop said, "I don't think so." And I said, okay. 6 months later, on each of those occurrences, he came back to me and said, no, you were right. That cigar put a little bit of age, totally different. That cigar is fucking fantastic. And I go, really? And one of them was Paladin, and the other
Right.
one was Saka Khan.
Hmm.
And he came to me and he was like, you were right. Those were good. And I said, I told you. I told you. So I have 2 I told you so's with William Cooper, and both of them involve you. So that's, I don't know. I always find it pretty interesting. Actually, there might have been a third one. No, maybe. Maybe I came close. But there's definitely 2 for sure. And they were both involving you. And I said, I told you. Cigars were good.
Well, the other thing too is, so as well, most people assume that I would get an inherent bias that would be positive with the media. It actually works the other way around, because the more popular and better you're doing, there's almost a contrarian nature to the way a lot of these media sites work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That they don't want to go the way that a lot of other people are swimming. You know what I mean? So oddly enough, it actually can work against you. In fact, I don't know when it's going to happen. This could be the year that it happens, but there's going to be a point where I'm not going to make the top of the consensus list, right? 8 straight years, been crushing that list. Last year, we really destroyed it. Number one, number 3, and number 5. That's never going to happen again. That's a fluke of nature. But there's going to be a point where I'm not even getting in the top 10, right? And then the story will be the demise of Steve Saka. And that will be celebrated for a good year to 2 years. And then I'll make something, and then they'll let me back into the clubhouse. It's the cycle of the way these things go, right? And you get the same thing. You get it from media guys. You get it from retailers. Look, we have a lot of retail accounts that love us, but we have a lot who we're unwilling to open that just think we suck. So as a byproduct, they're going to always say that whatever we do suck. And then you have consumers. There are some consumers that genuinely don't like what we make. And I can understand that. Look, cigars are personal, right? But we don't make garbage. Okay. It's a question of whether you like this profile, you like that profile, you like this drink. But I don't think anyone could say we make substandard cigars. I think we make at the top tier. But you're going to see more and more, as the company becomes more popular and the brand becomes more known, you're actually going to see more negative, because people just like to be that way, even if they don't really feel it's negative. There's some that legitimately do. Okay. I don't want to take away from their opinion, but it's also human nature. So there's a point where the pendulum's going to swing the other way. What you're hoping as a manufacturer that the consumers at this point have gotten to the point that they've tried enough and they've made up their own mind, and they're no longer looking for guidance from other people to tell them what they should think is good and what they shouldn't think is good. And that's what you're hoping. You're hoping to get beyond that hurdle, but who knows? But it definitely swings. It always does.
Well, it's kind of like that that old adage of it's human nature. We like to build people up and then tear them down. And that's just kind of what happens. No matter, what the theme is, it's just we build things up and then we break them down. And right now it's like you build up DTT and then there'll be a crumbling of DTT, and then you can emerge from the ashes and earn your way back into the clubhouse, like you said, and everything will be fine again. It's just the circle of life.
Except I'm alive long enough to get to that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Or,
about-
your other saving grace is if Charlie decides he's done with the consensus, as he's been saying for the last couple of years, and then, you go out on top, and it's like, well, you didn't have to have a year where you missed the consensus because there isn't one.
He stopped the consensus because of me. That will be my story. And I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I remember last year he was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing the consensus. It kind of gets like really difficult. It's a lot of work. And I know Charlie, and I like Charlie a lot, and I almost want to be like, Charlie, is it just because you get finding it harder and harder to justify why Steve gets number 1 every year?
I don't get number 1 every year, but I have been in the top 3 all 8 years.
Or yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I've been number 1, number 2 for like 7 years, and I had 1 year where I got number 3. So
those are still good numbers.
I like the consensus because it's not perfect, okay? But what I like about it is it's not any one reviewer's opinion. It's a combination of them just taking an average of all of the reviewers. It doesn't mean that all the reviewers that are in the average are good. Okay, but guess what? All the consumers don't have great palates, right? All the retailers don't have great palates. So I like the fact that it's just a much more egalitarian snapshot. The whole ranking of 1 through whatever 2025, that's very arbitrary. Okay. Part of it too is, look, obviously, more people smoke my cigars because they get a lot more clicks on the reviews. So as a result, I get a lot more reviews than a lot of other people. But at the same time, if the review sucked, then it wouldn't let me stay at the top. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a double-edged sword, whether more reviews help you or hurt you. It really just depends on the content of the review as to whether it ultimately does. But I think that there is no all ratings, all rankings, everything is inherently biased. Even, sometimes you could argue it's because of money. Sometimes you could argue it's because of relationship. Sometimes you can argue but I think I'm just going to take it at a sincere level and just assume that everybody has different palates and different tastes, right? So therefore, what one reviewer, look, I know with Charlie tends to prefer milder cigars. I know that Brooks prefers heavier cigars, right? So I know when I see a half wheel review, first thing I look at is the name who's reviewing it, right? I know that my number is going to be 3 points different compared to whether Charlie or Brooks does it. And it's not that neither one of them are being sincere about their number. It's just they have different likes and wants and desires in what they consider to be a really exceptional cigar. It's just the way it is.
And that's the way it should be too, right? Like I think that's what people want to read is, what is our opinion? What did we get out of the cigar? And if that reader aligns with that, then they should read that and follow that, right? Like that's, I think,
I saw a YouTube review today of Don Derma Golden Child. Reviewer hated it. Literally hated the cigar. Okay. Loves Don Derma, hates Don Derma Golden Child. Too peppery, too harsh, too sharp, too this, too that. The regular Don Derma, loves the regular Don Derma, the subtleties and the nuance and the balance. Truth is, these are two very different cigars that are blended to be very different experiences. So for another smoker, they're going to say, wow, Golden Child's way better than regular Don Derma. You know what I mean? And vice versa. There's no way that some smokers may be able to appreciate both for what they are, but most people can't. Most people have what they like and what they don't like, and this is the prism in which they make their opinions and their judgments, and that's just part of reviews. I mean, that's what it is.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Kevin and Mitchell mostly do all the reviews here, and then there's possibly another that will be doing them as well. And I like to think that they each have their strengths and weaknesses. They both have their likes and dislikes that are unique to them. There's a lot of stuff that Mitchell likes that Kevin was like, meh, and vice versa. And I think, but you do need that, especially within the media. You need that balance of, having a diverse, especially palette-wise, a diverse team of reviewers who are all going to do things differently, and they're going to rate the same cigar differently. And
it goes back to why I like the consensus list.
Yeah.
Because it's an average of 30 different review sites.
Sure. Of course. And in a perfect world, that's how it always should be, but unfortunately it can't always be like that. And so, like you said, I mean, it depends on who reviews the cigar, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who who review cigars, and you can tell by the name, not just Charlie and Brooks, but Coop, Aaron Loomis, all the others, the guys at Dojo, and I mean, you kind of get to know based on the history of the things that they reviewed, what they rated it, like where they tend to lean.
I know that Eric at Dojo is much more receptive to a mild cigar than some of the other people on the Dojo panel.
Yeah.
There's other people in the Dojo panel that just, when it's a mild cigar, oftentimes are kind of like, doesn't float my boat,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I think, and that's why I think, as a consumer, you just kind of look at all of these ratings and rankings and top lists and kind of just use them as guidance to say, okay, here's something I'm interested in trying. Here's something that should be on my radar. You know what I mean? But you can't take them as gospel. They just none of them are. I don't even have a top list that's gospel within my own brand. It depends on my mood of the moment as to what I think is best. And sometimes I smoke and I go, man, that wasn't all that great. You know what I mean? So, but I might smoke that same cigar 3 weeks later and it's just right for the moment, just right for what I'm drinking, just right for how I'm feeling. And it's, oh, wow, this is a great cigar. So you just got to kind of, and that's the beauty of having so much diverse media is it isn't like in the old days where CA Cigar Aficionado was the Bible. Everything they said was the absolute final truth as to what's the best cigar. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now because there's so many different people out there, and then on top of the different media sites that you have, now every consumer in the world is a reviewer. Everybody has social media access. You get to comment on every picture posted, whether you liked it or whether you think it sucks. So, I mean, individual consumers now end up having their 2 cents heard too.
It's true. And, I think we saw a great influx the last couple of years of the cigar community and the industry side of it being a lot more in tune with social media, both with the consumers, with the manufacturers. I mean, people like yourself who's very in tune with social media. You're very connected with the consumer base and everyone out there. Brands have started, groups and stuff like that. And you're right. And there's a lot more involvement and there's a lot more discussions happening. And that whole, what used to be only in the cigar lounge when you'd sit in the lounge with 5 other guys and you'd all be smoking different shit and you'd all be saying like, oh, I like this, or you have that, or oh, this guy. Now everyone's doing it online and it's constant every day and everyone has an opinion or everyone's trying, to spread the gospel, so to speak, and of their own right, and there's a lot out there. It's a much different time now.
But in the end, you just have to try these things yourself and decide what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, when we do a review or we make our cigar of the year list, it's us trying to put together, the list, at least the list is, what we thought was the best that year, and we put a lot of thought into it, and and sure, there's things that maybe get missed or maybe some stuff people don't agree with, but
so much,
right?
So it's limited to it's the best of what you happen to smoke.
It's true.
Out of the last year, even you know what I mean, because there's hundreds of new things every year.
Of course,
you can't smoke it all.
You can't, and we've had that discussion. It's we make a general light list of certain things we want to hit, and then other stuff after that, and at the end of the year we look and see what did we get, what did we have, what can we still still try, but it's hard. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of cigars to get released during a year, and even with a team, I mean, not everyone's going to get to smoke everything. It's rough. But you do the best you can. That's all you can do, and make a recommendation to people like, hey, you know what? This is our list. You should try these, but try some other stuff too. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Maybe I'm a little biased. I don't know. I do media, so I like to think that the list should have some serious weight to it. But at the end of the day,
I think the only thing you can say about when you make a list is that it was done in good faith.
Yeah.
If you could say it was done in good faith and that it was sincerely what your opinion was, I think you've done good. I don't think you could ask for anything more than that.
Of course. I agree with that. And yeah, I mean, do it in good faith, no bias. Everyone gets a fair shot. That's the only way. And then you move on and you work on the next year. And you do it all over again.
There'll be hundreds of new cigars next year too.
Yeah, that's right. You just do it all over again. Start from scratch. I got to touch up my cigar. It's not really on a construction issue, just me. But I'm using an ST Dupont lighter. That's right. Our friends at ST Dupont are with us always, using all of their cutters and lighters on every show. That's what we do. ST Dupont, be exceptional. Tonight I'm using the Defi Extreme in the new Petrol Blue. It's a matte blue finish. This is a new color scheme introduced earlier this year. at the trade show. These are now on retail store shelves, featuring that
Is that
beautiful.
this one?
It's the model,
Looks-
different color, but yeah, it's the model. The
that looks
Defi
like it.
Extreme.
This is actually a pretty good torch lighter. I
It
actually
is.
like it.
It's nice, and you know what? For only 2 torches, it lights some pretty beefy sticks too.
Yeah.
Like wow.
Mine's only one.
Oh, it's one?
Mine's a single flame.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a single and a double flame version of it.
I think the double flame is a newer model then.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they changed it to 2. So that might have been that must be an older model.
What I
Okay.
like about it is it has a big sight window. You can't tell because of the light here.
I know,
It's got a
right?
really big fuel sight window. It holds a considerable amount of fuel. I like that. What I don't like about it as a manufacturer, there's no place to put your brand name on this thing.
Why did you want to do some branded DTT Dupont
Yeah, if you
lighters?
did, but I mean, they really weren't thinking about that when they designed it. You know what I mean? Because of the way the wings come in that are like bolted onto it. There's not
Yeah.
a lot of surface area.
Well, Les Mann usually watches this show, so I'm sure he'll hear your
Heard me
concerns.
complain about it at least a dozen times. Trust me.
Yeah,
He knows.
yeah, and he'll put that in the I don't care bin, and he'll move on.
Right.
Oh, Steve doesn't like it. That's too bad.
STV bought. They don't need my 2 cents. They're doing just fine. They were doing fine before I was born. They'll do fine after I'm dead.
You
So-
imagine that discussion the next day. Hey, so Steve Saka last I was on a show. Really? Yeah, he was talking about Defi Extreme. What did he say? Not a fan of it because of the branding. Well, fuck
Oh,
him.
No,
All right.
Hicks is a great lighter. I just wish there was more branding surface on it.
Anyway, you could get the Maxi Jet. That's got plenty of room for branding. You could do that. Oh man, Steve. One of the things I want to ask you about this first, just because this is kind of the newest thing. Last week. Sorry, I had to think about it. All the days start to bleed together. Last week, you announced that you were going to be making some slight tweaks to the Sobremesa line. You
Yeah.
were going to be giving a name to the original line as to
Right.
better differentiate, which is going to be known as the Solita, if I said that
Right.
correctly.
Yeah, I
Which-
just made the word up for like little son. It's not a real word.
oh, you made that up.
Yeah, totally a bullshit name.
Okay.
Slang.
That's
It's soccer slang. It's me butchering Spanish is what that is. Well, look, they add ita to everything to mean small, right?
yeah.
So solita, little son. So it's pretty obvious to me. So, but yes, we're yeah, because it becomes hard to describe the original Sobremesa because you end up calling it the old one. That's not a very appealing thing for a retailer to explain to a consumer. You got Sobremesa Brulee, and then there's the old one. It's kind of like, so it needed to have something to just make without Brulee, it was fine. But once we added Brulee, it really needs some sort of descriptor to separate it. So when you're talking about Sobremesa, which Sobremesa are you talking about?
Yeah, and I remember putting that article together, and I remember you saying like it didn't do it justice calling it the old one, and I agree. It's kind of like oh yeah, that old one. Like it kind of waters it down, and it's like no, it's still a great cigar. Like it deserves the respect of having its own name, and
I think it also really helps differentiate it, like Steve said, just the fact that like if you didn't have a band on them, you wouldn't like they're such different wrappers, first of all, and there
Right.
is still that core smoking experience from the both of them, but when like a lot of people, I think the Brulee has really overshadowed the now Solita, and I think now with it honing its own name, it might actually see a bit of a resurgence, right? Of people being like, oh, there is this OG Sobremesa that it's based on.
We still sell more Sobremesa original old ones. Okay, it grows every year, but look, Brulee is definitely the winner if we put them in a knife fight in the octagon. But part of that's because look, 50% of the market smokes mild Connecticut shade cigars, right? So you've got such a bigger pool of smokers, right, that are going to be attracted to Brulee just from the get-go to even try it. So there's no way that the original one I think could ever outpace it just by the sheer size of the market that's available when you talk about a milder Connecticut shade cigar. But it does need a differentiation. And then the other problem with the line is the fact that it's still in the original 25 count boxes, and cigar prices and costs have so much escalated that it's become a very difficult box purchase for a lot of customers. It's just too big a bite. And it's also very confusing to the retailers because they keep forgetting that the one's in a 25 count box and the other's in a 13 count box, and they just would like them all to be in the same count box. And I understand why. So just while we're going to make the change in the quantity in the box, let's just go ahead and add this little extra moniker to give better differentiation, to just make the story a little cleaner for the retailers and for the consumers. Because there's a lot of consumers that they're just getting exposed to Dunbarton for the very first time right now. They've never heard of Dunbarton.
Yeah, we've talked about this, a bunch of times on different shows over the years. And this isn't a bad thing either. But the average consumer, who goes into a shop, maybe not very frequently, but frequent enough, they go into a shop and they browse around, they look at cigars, they have a cigar, maybe they have the Sobremesa, and they come in the next time, and they don't remember exactly. They see the Brulee, but they just remember Sobremesa they have, and they go, "Oh, this isn't what I had last time." And
Right.
people get confused, and it's not even just with you.
They're
There's
still going to get
lot of
confused
brands.
after this. I mean, come on, we're talking about. They don't remember names. They don't remember anything. You have no idea how many consumers walk into a cigar store and say, "Yeah, Bob, remember it was like a really big dark Maduro cigar with like a star on it."
Oh, well,
Okay.
yeah, that of course too, yeah.
And then it turns out that it really wasn't. It actually had a bird on it. But oh yeah, no, it's the one with the bird, not the star. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Hey, I'm gonna step up for a moment. I gotta turn this fan on. It's getting warm in here.
Go ahead, do your thing.
You guys talk amongst you. What is that? Coffee talk?
Sure, coffee talk.
Yeah, coffee talk.
I mean, I'm gonna make it bourbon talk, and Mitchell's just gonna sit there with his water like he's in the 5th grade. There he is.
Water's good.
You look like you're in the 5th grade too, which I think is great. It really adds to my point.
So I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about this live on the internet,
Oh,
but I'm
what do you got?
currently fasting, and so I'm actually going to be even smaller than I was previously.
Hold on, stop. Let me ask you a question. Why are you fasting? Is there like a real health reason that you need to? Because
There is a reason. Although I am not a big person,
No,
I eat an insane amount of food very quickly, as you have
I
seen.
do know. I saw this
it's
kid take down a bone-in New York strip in like minutes, single-digit minutes.
It's very unhealthy, the amount of food I eat at the speed I eat it at. So I'm doing it mainly to break some eating habits. I'm not planning to do it long term, and I'm definitely not doing it to lose weight of any some sort, because I definitely don't need to do that.
No.
But it's mainly to break that.
Well-
Again, and then slowly go back to regular meals of eating 3 times a day. But yeah, I'm currently fasting, and part of that is why I'm not drinking, or else I actually would be.
You'd be
but,
shit-faced by now.
I would
Yeah.
possibly.
And I
Yeah,
assumed
do
you were
something.
doing it because taxes were so high. You needed more money for cigars and food. So you got to cut down the food budget.
Honestly, that is part of it too. I've stopped buying bottles. I used to buy bottles more frequently, and dude, like we just increased our alcohol tax just like 6 months ago.
Oh yeah.
Just it's great living here. I love it.
Well, I was gonna
but
say,
yeah,
you
that's,
you got you
You guys got free health care.
good, yeah, in quotation marks. Oh, something's wrong with you and you're not dying? Oh, we'll see you in 2 years, I guess.
Well, Mitchell, I was gonna say, you were born with two very strong food-based heritages that it
Yep.
makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're Chinese and Italian. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to eat. I mean, it's just
I-
it's just who you are. You were born that way. It's
And
how
the
it was
other-
meant to be.
I've also combined it with part of it is I would eat an insane amount of carbohydrates.
Uh-oh,
Like,
Nicole's
again,
here. She's got something
pasta
for you.
and rice was a huge part of my diet, and I've learning to not like crave that, because it's hard, man. I just love pasta so much, and
Nicole's comment right there explains why a man and a woman are different. Okay, what makes perfect sense.
My
to
wife
her
is
gender,
literally.
just
my
a
wife
complete
is
like.
literally
Are you kidding me? I mean, it's like no concept of how we hoover food.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
so
Yes, that's perfectly rational, Nicole. Yes.
I've had this discussion where she doesn't get it. Like, I just, hey, we like to eat. I mean, it's
yeah.
just how it is. I mean, we like
I
to
had this
eat.
conversation with Cindy. No matter how big a package is, that's a single serving. If you open
Yep.
the package, that is a serving. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's those 100-calorie snack packs, that's a box of 100-calorie snack packs that equal a serving.
It's funny. I talked about this a lot. When we got to PCA this year, I was at the airport and I was waiting for my bags at the baggage claim at McCarran or Harry Reid now, whatever they call it.
Whatever.
And fucking Jose Blanco comes wandering around the carousel, and I go, "Oh, look, it's Jose." And Jose comes around and, "Oh, hey, Matthew, how you doing? Wow, you really put on some pounds." And I'm like, "Thanks, Jose." But I said to him, I go, "I like to eat. I mean, like who doesn't?" But yeah, this is true. We went to a steakhouse with Mitchell, and he got a decent sized steak, bone and everything. And I remember I looked over, and that bone was clean, and the rest of us still had half a steak on our plate. And I
I was
said,
gonna
"Are
say,
you
I
already
think
done?" And he's like,
everyone else
"Yeah,
was about halfway, and I also ate 2 plates of sides alongside that.
dude, he
So
did. He ate a lot."
yeah, so it's going well so far. I've learned to tame myself, and I think I'll be able to
So, I mean,
hopefully bring this
what
on
sort of
long term.
fasting schedule are you on, Mitchell? I mean, are you doing like intermittent fasting like once a day? Or are you like you're
Yeah.
doing 3 days of nothing but water and then
I'll be
you break?
currently. I'm going to be doing
Great question,
a
Steve.
20 off food and then a 4 hour on.
Okay.
Where I usually alongside a extremely low, I wouldn't want to call it fully keto because I don't go fully keto, but it is very meat based, but I tend to go with leaner meats, whereas keto is like
Right.
bacon and fatty meats,
Right.
and it just helps me
But
feel full
you're still
longer.
eating some starchy vegetables, like maybe
Oh
not
yeah,
potatoes. Well, potato isn't really
yeah,
a vegetable, but I mean, you're not saying, oh, I can't
yep,
have any green beans, I can't have
exactly.
carrots,
Oh
right?
yeah, I eat
And
carrots. Yeah, I
what
eat all
about
that stuff. Yeah,
like fruit, right? You're still
yeah,
eating
I still eat
fruit.
fruit. Still eating
Right,
fruit.
because when you go that full
Exactly.
keto, you can't have so little. It's like the
Exactly.
veggie list gets reduced to like cauliflower and water. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's like only like 6 approved veggies, right?
So yeah, I'm doing a 20 off and then 4 on, and then I am planning to throw in some 24 hours. And but you know what I was really scared of? I was scared I wouldn't be able to smoke cigars because I end at 4 o'clock, and I usually have cigars I start reviewing around 7 or 8 at night, or enjoying as well just after my daughter goes to bed. And I was afraid that if my stomach was more empty, I would not be able to handle it. And yeah, I smoked the Papasaki yesterday and no problems at all. I've smoked a couple of stronger cigars as well, even than that, and I felt okay. I just pace myself and make sure I have water, and I felt great.
So it's funny because Steve, I think you heard this conversation while you were waiting to come on in the beginning of the show. He talked about Red Meat Lovers Club, and the reaction was, "It's not really for me." And it's like, yeah, but did you do the requirement before you smoked that cigar? Did you have a steak before you had a Red Meat Lovers Club?
He's
Because if you
saying
didn't,
Just so we're clear, Mitchell said it wasn't really for him.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, but I want
You
to
know
know how
what
accurate that was.
I find odd about that is that you do like Mi Querida. So really, Red Meat Lovers is in that same general genre. It's definitely different.
It is,
Okay,
and that's why
it's
I'm
different,
surprised.
but it is kind of unusual. But look, again, there's a reason why there's Red Meat Lovers and a reason why there's Mi Querida. Just the reason why there's a blue Mi Querida, a red Mi Querida, and a black Mi Querida. Okay, there are differences between them. So it really comes down to what works for you. If any of those 4 even work for you,
Yeah.
look, it's it all the time online. I mean, I see people post that Stillwell Star Navy is their favorite cigar I make. I think if you polled 98% of the people that smoke my cigars on the regular, they would say, "Are you fucking kidding me? The Navy is your favorite, right?" Not that they hate the Navy. Well, some do, but you know what I mean? It's like it's so individual as to what you like in a cigar. And and as we grow the portfolio, and I had this comment earlier with Matt, you get a little more fringy with the blends. The Krakatoa is a fringier blend. In the exclusives, Frog Juice is a fringier blend. You know what I mean? Famous 80th. I mean, it sold out 3 times. It's done really well. There's a good audience for it, but it's also you can't you don't want to make everything the same where you're just creating a new brand because it's easy to sell a new brand. You want to bring something at least slightly different, if not significantly different, to the table, and maybe you'll appeal to a consumer that yeah, they tried your other stuff, but you know what, it didn't really ring their bell. So maybe this is what will ring their bell, because if you make it all taste the same, then what's the point of having it all?
You know what?
Steve.
I think
No, oh, you go first. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I think Matt actually has a point with the red meat lovers. I think I might actually enjoy the cigar better paired with the steak. For me, I love the Micarita. I've loved the blue. I've loved the black. I enjoy the red. I find the for me, red meat lovers is a bit more earth forward compared especially to the blue. I don't get that underlying sweetness and maybe a bit of that. I think the Micarita adds a little bit more complexity in my opinion. And I think maybe with the steak it would uh maybe fill in that void that
Or
I
maybe
don't know.
it
I
won't.
don't know.
Who cares? I
Maybe it
don't
won't.
care. Just keep buying new Rita. You know what I mean? It doesn't. That's the point. You don't have to love everything.
Yeah.
The point is that there be a selection of things, and hopefully you'll find a few things in the portfolio that sing to you, and I'll earn your money there.
And you mentioned Krakatoa. I know it took you a while to blend that. I'm sorry, Matt. I don't know if you did you have anything to add to that.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
The Krakatoa is it's obviously one of your newer ones that's hitting the shelves. You mentioned it being a fringe blend, maybe not something that people who just know your core are going to be like, oh, this is going to be a classic Steve Saka. Um, what made it so different? And also, I think you've mentioned it took you almost 2 years or 3 years to kind of
Over 3 years.
reimagine the blend multiple
Yeah.
times. What was it? Was there a specific tobacco that you just couldn't really tame, or was there a certain
No, actually,
profile you just weren't
I
hitting?
was using. I actually, what was the turning point is when I started using some tobaccos that I don't normally use. I was trying to make a blend that was more. I wanted it to be like a really strong blend, but I wanted it to be a strong blend. I don't make strong cigars, right? I make strong cigars, but I don't make super bitey, peppery cigars.
Right.
That's not my
Now,
normal thing. There's a few in the line on Stolen Valor, which doesn't really count because that's Raul's blend. Tricky Chaka 448, I would consider pretty punchy. But for the most part, most of my cigars, they tend to be really full flavored and full bodied, a lot of them, but they don't tend to be very bitey, right? So I wanted to make a really strong blend with a high nicotine content, but I didn't want it to be so sharp that you couldn't get the flavor out of it. And so what I really wanted it to be like is I wanted it to be like when you get one of those like really strong Habano cigars, but then you put it away in your humidor and you pull it out like 7, 8, 10 years later, right? Where it's been tempered down. And I wanted it to also have a much more kind of drier kind of finish to it, because that dry kind of finish is very classic taste profile that you get out of those really strong Habanos that have been laid down for a very long time. You know what I
a great
mean?
Bolivar.
Right. So it's a very unique, hard flavor to describe, but it's definitely a trait. And I didn't mean to say Habanos, I meant to say Habanas. Okay. So, I mean, and that was kind of what I was shooting for. And it's a rather esoteric, somewhat enigmatic kind of flavor profile. And so I really struggled to how do you make this where I don't just make something that maybe Pepin Garcia would make, and then I sit on it for 10 years, right? Because that's not a commercial possibility. Okay. So, and that was kind of what the goal was to try to make that. And that turned out to be a real challenge to try to make something taste like that. Now, I think of the Muestras, I don't think it's going to be nearly as crowd pleasing as a Naka Tamale or an Unstolen or a Bewitched, because it is just, again, it's a kind of a fringe kind of profile, but it's also something that is rather unique in my portfolio. It's drier, it's more woodsy, it's sweet, but it's kind of that cedar kind of sweetness. Again, as though it's been sitting in that cedar box for 10 years, So that was kind of the goal with it. And it was kind of that, it was even where the name came from. It wasn't, and then this is the thing, many retailers are just selling it as this really super strong cigar. That's not why it was named Krakatoa. It was named Krakatoa because the strength is underneath. It's not evident. You know what I mean? It's the power is below. Okay, that's what it is, and that was kind of the way I was thinking of it. But I should have known better. Retailers, of course, are going to sell as the strongest cigar I've ever made just because of the name, but that's not true. It's not.
I've smoked it. I smoked it a few days ago. I liked it. I thought it was different. I thought it was quite different than the rest of the stuff that you've made. But I thought it was good. And sometimes it's nice when a manufacturer or whatever puts out a brand, puts out something that's a lot different than what you're normally used to, and it kind of makes you like stop and think about stuff a little bit more. You get sometimes I feel like you get into a pattern where you're always kind of smoking the same usual suspects, and there's nothing wrong with that. You find what you like, you smoke it. That's what you should do. But sometimes you find something from that brand that's a little more outside the box, and you kind of like, and you start thinking about it. You start comparing it to the other cigars, and you start to ask yourself, well, why do I like this one, and why does how does it stack up to this, and why do I like that one more? And I think you start to think about it a little bit more, and you kind of understand, maybe not understand, but you're a little bit more in tune with what you're smoking, and you kind of get out of that bubble of just like, I smoke Micarita Blue all the time. That's what I know.
And that's also part of what the Moesta line is all about, is about being these little, small, separate microcosms, different blends, different tobaccos, something that is different than the normal. It's meant to be a sample.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's meant to be, it's a finished cigar, obviously, but it's meant to be something outside the norm. Just like one of the most unique Moestas is the first one, the Exclusivo. It's all made with tobaccos that are aged a minimum of 5 years in the bale. All the tripas in that cigar. It's probably one of my mildest, smoothest, most balanced, elegant, almost soft on the palate style cigar. I think it's even, a lot of consumers get afraid because the wrapper is really dark. Okay. But really, the guys that are going to like really rave about Exclusivo are probably going to be the type of guys that really like to smoke brulee. You know what I mean? Because it's a little bit more richer experience, but it's a very subtle, elegant execution. And it's because the tobaccos have just been aged so long. And I don't tend to make cigars with tobaccos that have 5 or more years on them. It's not what I normally smoke.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to ask you actually earlier was, and when you talked about the Krakatoa, you talked about working with some tobaccos. You mentioned this a little bit before. You worked with some tobaccos you don't normally work with. But I know a little bit about your process, and I know a little bit about how it works, and we've talked about it. You've been very open about, blending process and the amount of samples you order, which I think you've claimed that you order the more samples than anybody from the factory.
I can't say that. I just order a shit ton. I make an absurd number.
Well, is there a tobacco that you've tried to work with, that you really wanted to work, and you just can't get it into the right blend? You can't get it to work.
Yeah, I've never had much success with Arapiaca wrapper.
Really?
Yeah, I've never had anything. Look, I'm sure if I just force myself to do it, I guess maybe that'll be a future Moesta, right? Because that's something that I've never really been satisfied with any blend that I've ever made with an Arapiaca coppa on it. So look, one of the things in Krakatoa, in both Golden Child and Krakatoa, I used Aganorsa for the very first time in a blend that I've commercially released. Now, we did plenty of stuff with it when I was at Drew Estate. Okay. But it's one of those things that for me, it just didn't really fit a lot of my profile of what I normally like to smoke. Not that it's not good tobacco. I would never say that it is, but it has some certain unique characteristics. But oddly enough, it was that tobacco that got me to where I wanted to go on both Golden Child and on Krakatoa. That really was kind of like, oh, this is the light bulb moment. When I started playing more and more with that, it kind of got me to a place that made more sense. And in particular in Krakatoa, when I offset that tobacco, with the Seiko, I use an Oliva grown broadleaf. It's grown as broadleaf wrapper in Nicaragua, but I use some of it as filler. And the combination of that broadleaf Seiko as the Base paired with that Lajero from Aganorsa, it got me to that kind of flavor profile that I wanted to go. And honestly, the Nicaraguan broadleaf, I've been pretty dismissive of it because it doesn't have that inherent sweetness that the Connecticut grown broadleaf has. It looks the same. It kind of feels the same. You know what I mean? But it lacks that same typical earthiness. It's almost like, instead of like that rich earth, it's more like almost a dirt. You know what I mean? It almost has like a sandiness to it. And this is just my personal opinion.
Of course.
This is just what I've worked with. I'm sure there's tons of manufacturers that are making absolutely great blends with it. But for me, I just wasn't finding a home for it. But oddly enough, it worked really well for what I was trying to achieve with Krakatoa. And it's kind of when I started adding those two ingredients to my samples and starting to work with blends centering around those two, one at the top and one at the bottom, that ended up actually finally getting me, over the hurdle that was making me not finish the blend.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that it's always interesting when you see people come out with, I don't want to use the word experimental, but I like when brands try to step outside the comfort zone, I think is the best way I want to put it, with some of their projects.
Yeah, you don't get rewarded commercially for it.
And it's true.
You get beat up for it. I mean, you're fighting for shelf space. And that's one of the reasons why doing that type of stuff, having a Muestra line where you have enough, patrons of your brand that are always willing to try the next Muestra, and they understand that it's going to be different. It's intended to be different. And they go into it with that understanding. It gives you some latitude as here's a way that you can make it commercially viable and go ahead and step out. Remember, Pepin Garcia had a brand, La Dueña. I don't know if it's still manufactured, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it like really got panned in the marketplace. It was a great cigar, but everyone expects super strong and super peppery and that kind of lean, racy kind of profile from Pepin. And here's this softer, gentler, milder cigar coming out of the Garcia factory, and it was a fantastic cigar. But Pepin's consumers it just didn't work for them, right? And then the consumers that it probably would work great for were not the typical Pepin Garcia consumer, right? So they would hear that it's Pepin Garcia, and they may not even try it because it doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't. They've already know. Well, I smoked La Bijou, and that's not for me. And I've smoked, this, and I've smoked that. So it's really hard to break out and to do these kinds of things, and particularly so when most companies don't really tell the story of their cigars very well. They don't interact directly with consumers very well. You know what I mean? They don't have the ongoing back and forth discussion of where you actually can share these kind of details. And part of the reason why is because Pepin Garcia is in Nicaragua doing his job in the factory, right? And what you have is three elements of, sales and marketing and distribution. You know what I mean? You're much further removed from the source. You know what I mean? And it's not that Pepin couldn't explain it. He absolutely can explain it, but he doesn't have the opportunity to explain it. So that makes it even more challenging when you kind of go off into the hinterlands and you make these weird things like Stillwell's Dark. That's definitely weird, right?
It's good, but it is weird.
How do you tell that story?
Well,
And
I'll you go first, Mitchell. Go ahead.
I had a question because since we're on the topic of interesting tobaccos or different tobaccos. I've previously heard you at least try some FSG, and I don't know if you're planning or
Yeah,
still trying
yeah,
to
I'm done
blend
with
it.
that blend.
Yeah.
It's done.
You're-
I
Oh,
made a killer FSG cigar.
oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
I am, yeah,
FSG has been a sore spot between Jeff and I for a long time. FSG has this.
sour.
I'm going to call it twangy. Okay. But it
Interesting
has
word.
this very unique kind of twangy note to it that has never really suited my palate. And so I ended up selecting some FSG tobacco at the farm like 3 years ago. And I actually finished the blend. Where are we at right now? The blend was 100% done November of 2022. So the
Okay.
blend is 100% done. What isn't done is the packaging.
Mm,
And what I really like about the blend is I think I made an FSG cigar that for the people that love FSG, I didn't get rid of the twang. It's there. You can tell it's FSG, but I also think I made a cigar for somebody like me that normally isn't a fan of FSG tobacco. That also there's a higher likelihood that you might also find it appealing. So I really need to get that blend in a box because it's actually some of my better work, because you're taking a tobacco that I personally don't directly cotton with and finding a way to make it work and not by just glossing over it or hiding it or making it so minimal that the people that love FSG don't even recognize that it's FSG, because that would be a disservice too. That would be the easiest thing.
yeah.
I make a cigar and I say there's FSG tobacco and there's no FSG tobacco in it, or there's so little FSG tobacco in it that it's undetectable. That's the easy way to just mail it in, but that's kind of cheating the consumer, I think. So
It for me, it's been a standout unique tobacco for sure. And every blend I've tried FSG in so far, like you said, it does have that twang. Like I just kind of mentioned sour, but I kind of say sour is like, lemons are sour, but I still like lemons. There's lots of,
right,
it's just a note like you often, and it's not like it's a bad sour. It's just not a note you often get in almost any tobacco. It goes beyond kind of anything else, and it is just super unique. But yeah, like I said
and
last time
that's
I
why
heard about it, it's been a while since I've heard of it.
you have consumers that absolutely love the FSG cigars because it does have that flavor profile that is very unique and distinct. But at the same time, it's that unique distinctness that also makes other people go, those cigars aren't for me. So I think I have a Goldilocks blend on that one. We'll see when it gets released, but I think I've bridged that gap really well.
Can you? I don't want you to give any more information. I was gonna say, can you see what it's wrapped in? Because I assume you're using it as filler, but
Yeah,
we'll get.
it's a filler because look, I not only did I select FSG, but I took the FSG tobacco that nobody else wanted. I took the Corona leaves, the very top of the plant, the very strongest of the FSG tobacco. Okay, so here I'm taking an ingredient that I already know that I'm not a particular fan of because of its notes. I'm saying, okay, give me the one that's the most that. Okay, so I actually took what we consider the worst by some people. Other people consider it the best, But I mean, but for me, given my experience, yeah, it was a challenging project. I mean, and look, and it all started in the beginning was not blending a cigar, but figuring out how to ferment it properly. Figuring out how to work that tobacco to get it to where we ultimately wanted to go. And we tried we actually tried 5 different techniques before we settled on it. And it was hard because I didn't have enough of it to build a Polone out of, right? Plus, you can't risk a whole Polone. So we were literally putting sample hands in Polones of Ecuador Habano, sample hands in Connecticut broadleaf Polones, trying it at different fermentation temperatures, trying it at different moisture levels, trying it at different turns to try to figure out where's the sweet spot for this tobacco to get where I wanted to go with it. So I put a lot of time and effort into that project. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to charge Jeff a lot of money for those.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to ask that question myself, and Mitchell beat me to it because Mitchell's apparently on his game tonight, and I've been drinking more than he has, obviously. So I'm usually a little bit further ahead of him, but Mitchell's he's on point tonight. I gotta give him a pat on the back. His Coop calls him Boy Wonder. He's living up to that Boy Wonder name tonight. Let's take a quick break. Let's do our news, and then we'll get back to Steve, and we'll talk more about all of the amazing stuff that he does every day. Once again, our news is brought to you by McAuliffe Cigars. That's right, featuring the McAuliffe Black, rated 91 at SmokinTabacco.com. McAuliffe Black, it's a blackout. This week, we have one of the biggest announcements of the year, I think is safe to say. It's the end of the year. It's about that time for the annual Zodiac releases to be announced, and perhaps the most popular of those is Davidoff. And today, Davidoff announced officially the Year of the Dragon for 2024 for the Chinese New Year. And you can read more about it on SmokinTabacco.com, but I'll give you a little bit of it here. It is once again time for the annual Zodiac series releases from manufacturers, of which have been getting more popular every year, perhaps none of which are more popular and anticipated than the ones that come from Davidoff. Davidoff will once again release a limited edition to celebrate the Chinese New Year. With this release, for the first time, Davidoff will complete an entire Zodiac cycle, which began in 2013 with the Year of the Snake. But it is more than just the cigar. In fact, it consists of a limited edition double Corona cigar composed of 8 different tobaccos, a special pipe tobacco blend, a cutter and ashtray, and a masterpiece humidor, and an additional, very limited Grand Toro cigar exclusively available for Davidoff of Geneva flagship store customers. The last couple of years, we've really seen an uptick in these Zodiac releases. More and more, manufacturers coming out. I think Placencia's got one now. I know we saw a Year of the Dragon from Gurkha at the trade show.
I didn't even know La Galera has one. My friend smoked one yesterday. I was like, I didn't even know they made that. Like, there's so many brands that are making these year ofs that, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
Placencia.
Placencia.
That's another one.
They got their foot in that one.
The list goes on.
So the Maya Selva announced one today.
Yep, Maya Selva announced one today as well.
There's about 12 of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
Drew's doing them now too with
Drew has it too, right? They do one.
Yep, they do. Although I think with Drew, with the exception of Year of the Rat, I know like they did the Year of the Ox, the Year of the Tiger, they did a Year of the Rabbit, but I believe those were all international. I don't think those were U.S. releases. I believe those were only international, if I remember correctly. The ones that Drew did the last couple of years, except for the Rat. The Rats they make, and those were here, but I'm pretty sure the rest were for Europe and Asia, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe Asia exclusively on one of them. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if I'm thinking of it right, I believe they weren't even available here, which was interesting. But yeah, this one is the core part of, because there's multiple sizes of it with humidors and stuff, but the core part of the Year of the Dragon for Davidoff is actually a 7.5 by 50 double Corona, which they also have just done a double Corona in their Anniversario #1 limited edition that just came out. So that's a big size, and now we've seen Davidoff have kind of close together, I guess, a couple of those big cigars, which I don't know. I guess I find interesting. I didn't think that's a big cigar. I mean, Steve, I mean you make cigars. I mean you know about sizes. I mean that's a big size. And I don't know. I guess for me, I was surprised that they went with that Vitola.
What's the size? I missed it. I wasn't paying attention.
7.5 by 50 double Corona.
Yeah. I don't know. In today's market, what are we talking about? It's a new Asylum, like 22 by like 464 ring gauge or something. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's more about. I mean, there's been a lot of larger ring gauges, but I think in the terms of the length, the longer cigars, I don't know. I
think a part of it is also this whole thing is meant to be celebratory. I think there was some backlash when was it the last year that there was quite a small Perfecto and people were like, I'm spending this much on it on like a celebratory year of cigar, and I'm done the cigar in like 40 minutes or something like that. And I think they might have heard that and been like, people are kind of right. They're spending a large amount. This is a very rare cigar. This is a very, it's something to celebrate, and they want it to last. They want it to be a bit bigger. 7.5 by 50 is obviously quite long, and but yeah, I think that might be adding to it, for sure.
And they have a price tag of $59 MSRP.
Do you know how many boxes they're planning to release? I could only see some of the limited stuff. Like they're doing they're doing some pipe tobacco as well.
They are.
That's coming out with like 5,000 tins around there. They're doing some,
I think so, yeah.
an ashtray and a cutter as well. There's about 588 versions of those that are numbered. So they're doing a huge thing, but I couldn't see in the press release how many actual boxes of the kind of that 7.5 by 50. I don't think it says.
Yeah,
even
I don't.
in their press release.
I don't think we have that number. We do have a number on the humidors. They're making the masterpiece humidors, in which the Grand Toros will be available, and those humidors, I believe, are only going to be limited to 25 pieces. The tins for the pipe tobacco is 5,400 tins worldwide, and then we have for the flagship stores with the. I'm sorry, I'm trying to skim through this really quickly. With the
I'm looking at the 7 by 50 10 count. They're going to release 5,160 boxes.
Okay.
There you go.
For the U.S. It doesn't say how much internationally.
Yeah.
It says 5,160 boxes of the 10 count available for U.S. market.
Yeah. And then the one with the 24 Grand Toro cigars will be limited to 600 boxes worldwide.
Right, 600 boxes of the larger Grand Toro.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the humidor is 25 numbered humidors.
Well, the interesting thing about the Davidoff one, I mean, is the fact that they didn't just make one cigar and put it in the box, which would have probably been fine too. But they really played into it too. I mean, they get the humidors, they get the other sizes with the exclusivity. They got some accessories with. They got a whole set really going on too, which is interesting. A lot of time and thought has been put into this. I mean, look at that ashtray.
Special cutters too, I believe, right? With like some sort of like dragon skin pouch. It looks like dragon skin. The leather.
Yeah, and that's pretty much on all of it too. I mean, the ashtray has it, the cutter has it, the box has it. It's that dragon scale pattern, which is, I mean, I think it looks kind of sharp if you ask me.
All right, so anybody that bitches to me about how much a DTT cutter costs, this one is $530.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Steve doesn't want to hear your complaining.
I don't want to hear your whines. And the ashtray is $490.
Ooh. Yeah. 588 pieces, I believe, on both. Yeah, 588 pieces. So, if that's up your alley, I mean, there you go. Go snag one. But if you want to read more about it, you want to hear more, I'm not going to go on and on about it all night. We get Steve here. We're not going to talk about Davidoff with Steve. But if you want to read more about it, you want to check out some of the images on what the stuff looks like. It is some pretty sharp looking stuff. If you can head over to smokintabacco.com, and you can find it. It should be right there on the homepage, or find it under our cigar industry news tab.
I mean, the ashtray looks gorgeous in the pictures.
It does. I'm curious.
Look, Davidoff does good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's gorgeous in person too, because they put together quality stuff. But I mean, sometimes you look at these pictures and then you actually hold it and you're like, look better in the photo than it did. It's kind of like an Instagram chick, right?
Yeah.
Better on Instagram than in reality.
Take off the filters and.
Hey, Steve's here. You get what you get. I mean, it's. I think most people know what they get when Steve comes on the show. Steve, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I asked you a little bit about this on the show. I mean, before the show, but I wanted to ask you on the show. Todos Los Dias.
Yeah.
Where are we at with that? Still laying dormant? You gonna I know some people have been asking about that.
The thing is, there's a particular filler ingredient in Todos Las Dias that I use in another product, and the other product was growing considerably faster than Todos Las Dias.
Okay.
The year that I stopped making Totos, I think it was like up 17%, and the other brand was like nearly 40% up. So it's just a question of where do you allocate materials to? Do you put them in continuing Totos, or do you put them into something else? It's kind of a shame because the Totos is a really good blend. So I didn't make it for about 2 years, and then this year I did a limited release of something called Archive Series, where I'm going to use this little, just me adding an extra little label on the box, essentially a cliche or a branding mark, so that I can like bring stuff back that were really good cigars, but for whatever reason, we've moved them out of the portfolio. So in 2023, I think it was like in February, I did a limited production of the Todos Las Dias Thick Lonsdale, which is like roughly, I think it was like 6.25 by 48 off the top of my head. Might have been by 46. I can't remember. And we sold it. And I mean, I'll make more again in the future, but there's no way I can restart the line at this point. There's just not enough tobacco to support both brands.
Right.
So I have to pick which of my children I prefer to put that tobacco in. And it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to make a 1,500 10-count boxes. It's only 15,000 cigars compared to you're going to have a whole core brand and you're going to make, 100,000, 200,000. And, you're hoping you got a core brand that's going to grow. So it was kind of like I was working against myself trying to promote both cigars because eventually one of them was going to have to lose. So rather than do that, knowing that at the end of this rainbow, something's going to have to give, or I'm going to have to change the blend in one of the two, which you don't like to do because you have consumers that really like the blend as is. I just said, okay, Todos Las Dias, it's going to go on hiatus.
Yeah, and that's a great cigar. But you're right. I mean, when you've talked about this on some other shows too. I mean, the cost of in this business at least, doing business, you have to look at your portfolio. You have to look at what you have, tobacco available, yada yada yada, all that stuff. And yeah, sometimes you got to make decisions that, hey, maybe it's not the best, but in the long run for your business, it makes sense. And sometimes, we see brands discontinue
It even makes sense for the consumer because even though the consumer that really loves Todos Las Dias feels as though they've been violated, in the end, if I can't make it the same, are they going to be happy with that? You know what I mean? So it's actually, rather than just grabbing the dollars and, oh no, we never changed it. No, it's easier to say, okay, I just simply can't do it. And look, and that's true with all of our products. I mean, and that's true with every product. There is a limit on everything, right? It's just there's a lot of factories with a lot of blends that it seems like they have an unlimited capacity to make them, but it's just because demand isn't exceeding the materials that they have. But when the demands do exceed the materials, you then are kind of caught in a position of where, what do I do? Now, sadly, what most companies do is they just figure a way to change the blend, okay, and just try to kind of sneak it through. But it's because it's such a large commercial concern at this point that it's very hard. And I think one of the things that consumers, they may not grasp, but it isn't just the manufacturer being greedy about it. These things affect people's lives. You know what I mean? I mean, if you have a really large brand like whatever, Liga Privada, and you're doing, $20 million a year wholesale, and I'm just pulling that number out of my ass. It's no basis in reality, right? But what do? Do you stop because you're short of one ingredient? You know what I mean? This literally affects like the livelihood of 200 families plus. You know what I mean? It's not just you and your bottom line as a company, but it has wide-ranging repercussions that impact an awful lot of people. So it's nice when I'm small, like I am. I can say, okay, we won't make Todos Las Dias. Okay, fine, we'll sell more X, Y, or Z. And, when we have enough tobacco, we'll do an occasional hit. Now, maybe 3 years from now, that situation will reverse and I'll have enough material and then I can bring it back full time into the portfolio. I mean, look, it's my job to put cigars in boxes that people are willing to buy. You know what I mean? It's not my job to make, limited vapor. You know what I mean? It doesn't help the company in any way. So, I mean, if I had the capacity to make it, I would be making it. I just simply don't.
Of
Yeah,
course,
that's fair.
and that's an integrity move. And I think I think you hit on two big points there. With one, you don't want to change it, and then have people not be happy with it, and provide a disservice to the clientele who relies on that cigar because they like it, and then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, what is this? And then people stop buying it or whatever. Anyway, hey, you know what? We're just not going to make
They
it.
start motherfucking me saying Saka fucked up my cigar.
That's true. Yeah, people are not shy to be like, hey, what the fuck happened here? What'd you do? Steve, you screwed me over on this. These aren't great.
Yeah.
But no, I like how you made the comparison too between a small company and the big company, and sometimes you can't just tweak a blend, or sometimes you have to tweak a blend. It's too big on
The
the
reality
scale.
is we're always tweaking blends. Listen, the one thing consistent about handmade cigars is that they're inconsistent. So in
Right.
order to make the smoking experience the same to the consumer, you're constantly tweaking. You can't treat it like a Betty Crocker baking recipe, a half a cup of this and 2 pinches of that and a tablespoon of this. You're always constantly adjusting, but there's a difference between adjusting to go to a same flavor profile versus, oh, I'm getting rid of an entire ingredient, which has a major impact on how this blend actually smokes and tastes. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So
of course.
there was no tweaking around it. And trust me, not that I didn't try, I did. Okay. I mean, I was trying to figure out a way to make it work. Okay, what if I strip back that particular tobacco, start supplementing with something else? I don't completely get rid of the ingredient. Can I get to a place that I'm happy? And I could get to a cigar that was perfectly smokable and perfectly good, okay, and perfectly sellable, but it didn't taste like a Todos Las Dias.
That's fair.
And then at that point, you make the decision. I mean, I get it too. And, I think, with the media guys, especially, we're so wrapped up in this all the time that there's more of a geek factor. And I think that's a Garofalo term. I think he used it first, the cigar geek factor. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. But I know I've heard him say it probably the most. And I just, I think it's true. And I think for us, it's like, oh, but to a consumer, I mean, I think there's a lot of consumers out there that they care about their cigars. They know what they like and this and that. But I don't think they get into it as deep as the rest of us do. And I think that you make a subtle change on something that's just not quite right or whatever. They're very quick to just dump it and move on to something else. And rather than just make a cigar that people don't like and try to pass it off, it's like, what, we're just going to stop it. We're going to do something else.
The way the market works today, I mean, you get rewarded for new. Look, I'm getting rewarded this year because I have so much new, right?
Most
so,
new.
I mean, it's kind of one of these things where, if you just look at it from simple commercial, you don't even have to make a good cigar. You just make a good cigar. Enough people are just going to try it and sample it in all the various retail shops that it's actually sellable the first to go around. I mean, you think of all the brands that so many of us companies release. How many of them are around, just even 3 or 4 years later, much less 10 years later? I mean, it's a really hard thing I call it a generational blend, a cigar that actually can go a full 20 years and still be on the shelf, still have a consumer for it, still have people that really enjoy it, still have people that recommend it, and there's so few, certain Fuentes, Padron, Oliva V, I mean, Liga Privada. These are what I consider acid, love it or hate it. It's what I would consider a generational product, right? It gets beyond that, oh, it's the newest thing on the block kind of cigar. And the thing is, the marketplace, it really rewards you when you get one of those generational cigars. But so few ever make it to that point. So there's really very little in the marketplace that incentivizes the manufacturer and particularly the brand owners, okay, to even try to make that when you can just bang out something new, put a new name on it, new band, tell a different dog and pony story, and bam, it's like instant easy sales.
Right.
Yeah. Now, talking about new, there's been a couple of cigars that a few folks have been asking about in the comments. One being the holiday year the Y 2023. What's going to be different about that compared to the 2022? And do you have an estimated time on when that's expected to
Yeah,
drop in the market?
so we will. So those will start shipping probably. So they actually got loaded in today's container out of the factory. So those will be at the port in Honduras on Monday. So it'll approximately, assuming normal shipping, normal customs, normal FDA, we'll probably be shipping that out starting right around November 15th. I mean, if everything goes the way you hope it's going to go, never any guarantees. This holiday blend is significantly different. It's another aromatic blend, but it's a different aromatic tobacco than what was used in number one and what was used in the 2022. And also, this is a Connecticut shade cigar, so it's a much different profile than the previous two aromatics that we've released. For some people, they're going to say it's the best one. For other people, are going to say it's not as good as the last one. It's just going to be the nature of the beast because it is a different smoking experience. But if you enjoyed either of the two previous aromatics, this one's worth trying. If you didn't like either of the two previous aromatics, I wouldn't spend your money on this one. And maybe grab a single if you see it on the shelf somewhere, but I wouldn't go chasing after it because it's another aromatic still well. I mean, even though it's different.
And yeah, for sure. Would you say this is more pipe tobacco-y or less pipe tobacco-y?
I don't even know how to quantify that.
I guess compared to 2022,
That's
because I
a
think a
very
lot of
interesting
people,
question.
I think a lot of people felt that the 2022 had more of that pipe tobacco feeling than even just your OG aromatic. So did you say try to keep it in that range, or
Well,
again,
look,
it's obviously
the
hard to say.
aromatic blend is different. So
Yeah,
I'm going to leave that up to consumers to decide. I mean,
yeah,
listen,
that's
because
fair.
you have the milder shade wrapper, it's just going to allow the pipe tobacco to come through a little more clearly. Okay. But whether that's good or bad, I don't really know. I
Yeah,
mean, it's all of the Stillwell stars are all just. I mean, talk about fringe blends. You can't get any more fringy than Stillwell Star, for God's
That's
sakes. I
true.
mean, it's all over the map.
the other blend that people were asking about, and again wondering what maybe makes it unique in itself, was the Wagashi. I think you mentioned it's supposed to be dropping this year. And again, what kind of differentiates it from the blue or the brulee?
I think it kind of cuts across section. I think the Wagashi is the Brulee Blue blend, but it's in a larger format, so it kind of helps to make it a little bit more creamier than the traditional Sobremesa Brulee Blue. Okay, because when it comes to Sobremesa, the Brulees, blue is the one that gets all the love online. It's the one that, going back to the geek factor, you get so much buzz about it. But the reality is, Sobremesa Brulee Toro and Sobremesa Brulee Robusto, it kicks the snot out of blue sales. Okay, it just does. So there's way more people that prefer core brulee than prefer the blue. Or maybe it's because they don't try the blue because the size is so peculiar, right? Because it's kind of it's that kind of large Lonsdale size. And, it costs what, $16, I think? I don't even know. MSRP. It's something like that, maybe even more. So it may be the price where they look at the other one and go, oh, well, I get a whole Toro and it's $3 cheaper. You know what I mean? And I don't have to fight for it. And it doesn't come in this pencil dick kind of format. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things. So Wagashi is an interesting cigar. I think it's going to find a lot of favor with people. But if they're expecting it to be, I think it's creamier than the blue, but I think it's fuller in body than the traditional brulee. Kind of where I would put it. But we are basically, we're talking shades of gray here, right?
Yeah, all
Um,
within the same, even probably slimmer than family, right? They're all based off of, again, this
yeah,
same wrappers, very similar blend, right? So,
yeah,
and
yeah,
is that
very similar
expected
blend.
to hit before the end of the year?
Yeah, that's going to drop. I can tell you when that drops too. That drops on November 10th.
Awesome.
We have a couple of questions in the audience that I've been kind of saving and I wanted to get back to. So if you've been asking questions, don't worry, I'm going to get to them. One of the first things, just because it's one of the first ones that's in front of me, Steve, people were asking about the DTT cutters and like when are they going to be available? How can they get them? I guess. I know
Yeah, I
that.
think I actually have that answer now.
Oh, you do.
Like literally today.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that!
Um,
Perfect timing.
So what I've decided, look, I don't want to be in the cutter business. I've made that very clear. I'm not really interested in accessories. So I think what we're gonna do, and this is tentative because it really depends on whether he can produce enough of them. But I talked to him about it today. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna make that for our purveyors at next year's PCA trade show. This year we gave them blue and black unicorns because I don't like to give discounts on cigars. I think it just sends the wrong message. It's such a lie, the whole discount structure. I mean, you basically make a product and you grossly overprice it so that you can then give the deal to the retailer so he goes to the trade show and he gets 25 points off on it. The whole thing is just this big lie, which then means you end up with this crazy MSRP, and then you end up with this crazy discount number, and then retailers are upset because they're fighting about, well, this guy's giving it away for too cheap. So the simple solution to that is I just don't believe in discounting cigars. Cigars cost what they cost, and this is what they need to be, and we just sell them at that. So we haven't given what you would consider a traditional discount to the retailers for, I don't know, it's been at least 5 years, right? And so what we started doing is, 2 years back, we used the stone ashtrays. Last year, we used the blue and the black unicorns. I think in March, we are going to use the cutters. So those purveyors out there that support Dunbarton and are customers of ours, they're going to get cutters as part of their order, okay? That we will, instead of giving them that traditional discount, we will give them DTT cutters. That'll mean that I don't have to be in the selling of accessory business. It'll give it to the retailer to then decide what to do with it. He can choose to retail it for its MSRP. He can choose to put it in raffles. He can choose to use it for promos. Just very much the way you see the blue and the black unicorns being used now, right? You see some retailers, they're selling them for $100 a piece. If you jump on their website or you call them right away, you can get one with no strings attached. Other retailers, like the only way you can get one is, hey, you got to buy this and you end up in a raffle and then maybe you'll get one. Or, hey, if you buy these cigars, you can get a blue unit. You know what I mean? Everyone's doing their own thing. And I'm just going to let that happen with the cutters too. But what that'll mean is it'll mean that I expect there'll probably be about 2,000 cutters available in the marketplace sometime next spring. So I think that the people that want a cutter, they should be able to find a cutter.
There's your answer. And I wanted to touch on this really quick, Steve, since you brought this up. In regards to the unicorns right now, our friends at twoguyscigars.com have a magical unicorn quest going on right now.
I saw that today.
Each pack contains 10 cigars. You will get one random unicorn, either the Sobremesa Brulee or the Mi Querida Black. That's the magical quest part. You will get 9 other rare or amazing cigars. You get 2 Krakatoa, 2 Mi Querida Firecracker, 2 Mi Querida Black Papasaka, 1 Todos Las Dias Double Wide Bellicoso, 1 Sobremesa Gran Imperiales, is that how you say that? 1 Tricky Traca 764, and 1 unicorn sticker shown above. That's 10 total cigars, including an elusive unicorn for $225, or you can double your odds of getting both exclusive elusive unicorns and buy 2 for $425. So if you head over to the number2guyscigars.com, you can partake in the magical unicorn quest. Maybe get one, maybe get both.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying. I leave it to the retailer to decide. You know what I mean? Because if I wanted to figure out how to retail this stuff, I would open a retail shop. You know what I mean? If I wanted to be a retailer, I could just start selling cigars direct, set up my own website, start doing my own fulfillment, open up my own storefront. But that's not the side of the business that I'm on.
Of course.
I'm on the manufacturing side of the business. So, and I'm also not in the accessory business. I have some pretty cool swag items that I like to make, right? But it's just because I like the cool swag items. The problem is every time I make something, it costs too much. The ashtrays cost too much. The crystal ashtrays cost too much. The cutters cost too much. Even the ball caps we're making right now, they cost too much. Okay, and the reason why is I don't like subpar cigars, and I don't like subpar other crap either. You know what I mean? But it's not that traditional, hey, buy this box of cigars and we're gonna give you some cheap Asian whatever that's gonna end up in a drawer and thrown away and not used until, you know what I mean? It's just not my shtick. And then if you're an accessory company, you're trying to make accessory products that are for the masses, right? That's what you're trying to do because you need to sell volume because there's so little money in it. And I have no interest in being in that game. Plus, look, it isn't my core competency. I'm never gonna compete with the big accessory companies that this is all they focus on. They have all the contacts in Asia that build all this stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. So
Now, one of the things that we got people asking for in the comments as well is to talk about the Halligan.
yeah. Yeah, Halligan is one of the new limited edition store drops that we're doing this year. It's being made for Tobaccoology out of Maryland, and it's an interesting blend. It's got a combination. It's got an Ecuador Habano wrapper. It's got the San Andres Negro, some of the Cultivo Tanto binder that I use in a lot of my blends, and then it's a combination of Jalapa grown Nicaraguan, both a Seco and then a Viso Grande, which is like in between a Viso and in between a Lajero. And then it has a particular type of Pennsylvania seed leaf. It's the classic number 41 Lancaster that we're using as a Lajero. And it's a 6.25 by 52, but it's a firm prensado. So it kind of feels more like a 49 or a 50 in the mouth, and it's got a really and I think I wrote this. I mean, I was trying to figure out the tasting notes for it, and it's just a lot of chocolate. It's very chocolatey.
Hmm.
It's chocolatey, medium full, super smooth, but it's a really nice blend. I think it's a nice release in the lexicon of all these limited kind of drops that I make. So I think it's going to find some favor. And I don't know. It's hard to tell if it'll sell quick. I mean, I've been very lucky. They always seem to always sell out. But because I have so much new all landing on top of one another, I don't know that it's going to bang out the way some of the previous ones do. But who knows? And so much of it has to do with the reach of the retailer too, right? So like I do the Federal 100th, right? For the store here in New Hampshire.
Yep.
He has no website, right? There's no easy way to order one. You have to call the store. You have to get the right guy. You have to talk to him. You know what I mean? Or you got to bounce back and forth in email or DMs. So as compared to when you do a project with Abe, he's already sold 3,000 before he's even gotten them landed, right? Because he's done the pre-orders and he's got a huge customer base. And so I don't know where this one will fit in. I'm pretty sure it's going to sell out. I just don't know if it's going to be one of those things that sells out in 48 hours, or is it going to be one of those things that maybe it's hanging around for 3-4 weeks? I don't know. We'll see.
You know, it's funny. While we're on this topic, I seem to remember when the Federal 100th came out, I remember you making a Facebook post about this, and you talked about doing shop exclusives. And if I remember correctly, loosely wording what you said, you weren't a big fan in doing store exclusives because you felt that it wasn't. A lot of times, it's not a huge money
Not that I'm
maker.
not a fan of it. It's just not commercially all that big a deal.
Yeah.
So from a dollar point of view, it has very little value in the grand scheme of things. So, I do Halligan. I think there's like 390 boxes, 400 boxes roughly. It's 10 cigars in a box. It's 4,000 cigars. I mean, we made 1.4 million cigars this year. So where does 4,000 cigars, when you've had to make a special blend in a special box with a special band. Okay. And even though the box is simple, it's still something else in a different size. You got to make sure they get all the silk screens right. You got to, you know what I mean? They get the sizing right, and even though the halogen, I actually got a halogen here, it's just a simple yellow silk screen band, but it's not easy to get them to silk screen these bands. You know what I mean? So uh, these things are much more they're twofold. They're about marketing, okay? And that's why who I do them with is really important to me, okay, for the most part, typically, because for me, the marketing part of it and them promoting Dunbarton is really important because it helps to get more consumers aware of our product. And then the second part that's important to me is it also gives somebody who is a real DTT fan of my cigars a way to have something new and have something fresh and have something unique without me having to make a whole brand new brand. Okay. So it gives them something to, keep them excited about the company and the brand and the products that we release. Because, they've already got boxes of Mickey Rita and they've got boxes of Sobremesa and they got boxes of Sin Compromiso. So it gives them something special to look forward to. Now, the flip side of that is it also means because I know the customer that's most likely to go out of their way to buy it is probably one of my most loyal customers. It also has to be worth the price of admission. You know what I mean? It has to be something that's actually good. I can't just mail it in because, it's just 4,000 cigars and they're going to buy it anyways. You know what I mean? Because it's anti-advertising if one of these limited production cigars like a U-Boat or a Don Derma wasn't actually great, okay? It actually hurts me more than it helps me because I didn't make any money making the damn cigar. The benefit is the marketing part. So if I, make a cigar that gets people saying, well, that sucked. You know what I mean? This is the worst cigar Saka ever made. Well, then I've just completely defeated the only upside there is to the product. So there's a certain element of risk in making those products. And another thing that's a bit of a problem is whenever you make one, it irritates the retailer that you didn't make one for.
And you can't make them for everybody, obviously. I mean,
No,
with
there's
everything
not,
you're
there's not
doing.
enough capacity. Particularly, look, it'd be easier if some of these would go away, but I made that firecracker 3 years in a row. The only reason it went away is because the economics of it didn't work, for two guys and for me. There was no way for us to make that size work anymore. And look, Tricky Traca 448 is the firecracker blend and at almost the same size. The firecracker was 3.5 by 50. 448 is 448, right? So it's very similar. I like the 448 format better than the 3.5 by 50 format, but that's a debatable thing. But the blend is identical between it. Comes without the pigtail, but look how much more it costs today when you buy a Tricky Traca 448 in a box than what it cost when it was branded as a firecracker, because I can't make the firecracker for what I could make it back then. It's just not physically possible. And the problem is it then also gets out of, two guys has a price point that they want the firecrackers to fit in because they have loyal firecracker customers, not DTT customers, right? That, they expect firecrackers to cost between A and B. And here you're going to have a firecracker that ends up being $2 to $3 more expensive. And that's a problem. But I made Red Meat Lovers 5 times. And here it is now a nationwide brand. I made U-Boat now, I don't know, 5 times. And now there's another, U-Boat I've made 4 times. 4 times? Yeah, 4 times. It's not and then I've made Don Derma 5 times. Right now there's even another version of Don Derma. So they don't tend to go away. And then when I don't make one, like this year, I didn't make frog juice. And all I heard all year long was, when are you going to make more frog juice? When are you going to make more frog juice? When are you going to make more frog juice? And it's like, okay, so guess what? I'm going to make some more frog juice next year. There'll be a 2024 drop on frog juice. But it's hard because normally most companies that make these limiteds, they tend to be one-time wonder kind of things. And then they go, which is good that it isn't, because it means consumers really actually like the product. They actually think it's a decent cigar, that they're willing to buy it year after year and then more people get exposed to it and they buy it. So it's a good thing, but it also means these things don't ever get off the docket, which kind of crowds the space, which makes it hard to even launch other new ones because there's only so many months in a year. So even if I could generate the work product, how does it all get sold?
And then add on all the other stuff you came out with this year. Yeah, there's a lot of DTT out there in the wild this year.
It's but I mean, tobaccoology. This is like 2 years late. I mean, Golden Child was supposed to be done a year earlier than it was actually done. So I'm running quite a bit behind. And that's the reason why, I mean, Florida Sun Grown, I mean, like I said, I was 100% done with the blend last November. Okay. So that's a cigar that's 100% ready, and it's still not been put in a box to be sold to the consumers yet. So I've got to get some of these backlogged projects off my calendar.
Yeah, at some point you get overloaded. You got to make some concessions. You got to make things work. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you wipe out some of those exclusives for a while, and
yeah. But here's the other thing: you got these shops that really support you, right?
True.
So even though commercially it isn't that big a deal to me, I mean, you see what Rocky Cigars does for U-Boat, right? They're making videos. They're making special swag for it. You see what Abe did with Red Meat Lovers, right?
Of course.
I mean, he went hog wild. You see Ronnie, he's like a pimp on a corner, right? I mean, he's like slinging the rock hard, right? So so even though for Dunbarton it isn't a big commercial item, particularly for a brick and mortar store, it's a nice 100K payday. You know what I mean?
So you really put yourself through it for the support of the retailer.
You put it through, yeah. I mean, you gotta. I've always been a big believer in dancing with those who are willing to dance with you, and if they're willing to put that much effort into it, then isn't it my responsibility to try to, at least, do my part of the equation too? I mean, it just is. I mean, yeah, I make my life a lot easier not to make U-Boat next year. But how do I say I'm not going to make U-Boat? It's tough.
You got to make it.
Yeah, you got people waiting for it. Then you get the people who was like, "Well, what happened to U-Boat, Steve? Why aren't you making the U-Boat?" But and I get both sides of the argument too. I mean, people want cigars. They find cigars they love, special cigars, whatever it is. I get it. I've been there too myself personally. Because I like cigars too. I like to buy cigars. I like certain things from certain people that they drop that are limited or whatever. And
the other thing too is if you stop making it, then what ends up happening is 3 years in the future, there's some jackass flipping U-Boats for $100 a piece, right? So then it's just the flipper dudes that end up getting rich on it, right? So I don't want to encourage that either. You know what I mean? So it's the one thing. If I made something and you missed out on it this year, well, just keep your powder dry because chances are I'm going to make it next year again anyways. You know what I mean? So there's no reason for you to start having to pay some scam artist on Instagram, for some crazy price for a cigar, because I'm going to make more of it for the most part. I mean, look, unicorns, every year since the first year I made unicorns, every year I've made more unicorns. Every single year. I'll make more unicorns next year. Well, actually, next year's unicorns are already made, so that's already a given. You know what I mean? But the point is, I also don't want to encourage that flipper market, because it doesn't help the company. It doesn't help my purveyor. It might make your ego feel good, but it doesn't make my employees get a bigger bonus at the end of the year.
We had a couple other questions from the audience I'm going to get to. I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was interesting. Jay Davis, Blue Smoke of Dallas, is with us, and he comments in, "I'd like to see Steve do something like the Impossible Collection." I believe he's referring to the Fuente set. A box with all of his exclusives in it.
Yeah, and I thought about that. The problem is that means the stores that I've been doing exclusives in, they're going to end up feeling really disappointed.
Yeah, by putting their stuff into it and them not really being involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point.
And then the other thing too is even if you said, okay, I'm going to do it this 1 year, a lot of retailers aren't going to like it because they don't want to be selling cigars that eventually are going to go back to Rockies, or they're going to go back to Secreto, or they're going to go back to Smokin, or they're going to go back to small batch to get the Barba Amaria. You know what I mean? So once you put it in that kind of collection, it pretty much kills it. It has to always be in that collection that's available to all.
Yeah, because if not, then those retailers are going to have customers that are going to leave to go back to its original retailer to get more of them in the long run.
Right? You can't look. You can't do something like one of the things that, like, for example,
It's like
so
robbing Peter to pay Paul, in a sense.
look, one of the things I see consumers do all the time, and I know they don't think anything about this, but I'll be in the Cigars Daily Facebook group, and people will be posting a picture of a store exclusive that isn't sold by Cigars Daily. I try not to like that photo. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't appreciate the customer bought it, but I mean, you're in this person's social group. You know what I mean? It's not like you're in Cigar Cartel or you're in Cigar Smokers of Michigan or you're in, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, somebody posts a picture of Don Derma in the socialite group. Somebody, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things that none of the retailers have ever complained to me about it that own these groups. But I know they won't complain because they'll seem like they're just being like nudges about it. But you have to know that they're like, man, why is this jackass posted a picture of a cigar that my competitor only sells? You know what I mean? In my group. I mean, it has to be what crosses their mind. Yeah.
Oh, I know it
Nope.
does, and because I've had those conversations with certain retailers about certain things.
Oddly enough,
I know it does.
Something that I really like is when people take our swag and they post a picture of it with some other brand of cigars, because I know that irritates that other manufacturer to hell. That somebody's got whatever sitting on top of their their Dunbarton Sin Compromiso mug or leaned up against their Saka Squatch. Great for me.
That brand can't share it on Instagram. What, are they going to share your brand on Instagram along their side? You know, how's that going to help them?
Well, yeah, I think Jay's right. I would love to put them in an impossible kind of box too. And I think it would make an interesting collection for consumers. But it does basically mean all the shop exclusives stop. And
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And I was kind of like trying to phase Frog Juice out. And I basically I was inebriated at the trade show. And Jeff from Riverside caught me in a soft moment where I was really drunk. And I basically ended up saying, yeah, I'll make it again. You know what I mean?
Now you got to follow through.
Yeah, no, look, actually, I've already made Frog Juice. So Frog Juice is already in the cool rooms. But what I did do, though, he doesn't know this yet. This is the other thing, too. Retailers get no say in these exclusives. They get what they get. I changed Frog Juice. It was like Frog Juice 2.0. I made a 6x48 Pareo, where in the past it was a box press Robusto. So this year's Frog Juice, I figured, well, if I got to do it again, let me do something a little fresh.
Hey, that's 648, man. That's one of your sizes. I think it shines in a lot of your blends.
I agree.
So this year's Frog Juice is going to be a 6x48.
So we have another comment from the audience. We get this one from time to time with different brands. But hey, Steve, do you have any plans on using Cuban tobacco as a regional edition for Europe or Canada or Asia?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because there's no good Cuban tobacco available to buy in any sort of reasonable quantity. The little bit that you can scrap together is the scrap. I mean, Habanos doesn't have enough tobacco to make the cigars they're supposed to make. I mean, what are they down to? They're down to like production numbers are like around, and don't quote me on this, I haven't looked recently, but the last time I looked, I think they were like around 85 million units a year, right? So, I mean, they used to make like 140 million units a year. So they don't have enough of their own tobacco to make their own cigars. So there's no tobacco to be had, okay? So the only thing that there to be had is, yeah, you go to Cuba and you you buy a stolen bale here, you buy a stolen bale there, kind of thing, but nothing of any usable, decent quality that you could actually build something around. So no, it's just it's at this point it's unobtainium for our purposes, and I don't think, and given the way the situation that Habanos has been in for the last 5 years, I don't see that quickly changing. And anybody that says that they are, they're just full of shit as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know who says they do, so I may be pissing in someone's Wheaties at this moment, but I don't care. It's just there's nothing of quality available. There's stuff floating around, but it's because it needs to float around. It's
Now,
the same reason. The
is
same
this-
reason why I don't use Cameroon wrapper.
I mean,
Cameroon-
is this something you've actually like genuinely looked into?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made plenty of blends using Cuban tobacco. That's not a big deal. But it's the difference between, making a few bench samples versus trying to actually make a product, make it consistent. I mean, you need so much material. It's not like every leaf you get, you use. You know what I mean? You're lucky in some crops. I'm lucky if I can use 45% of it, 35% of it. So you need such a large volume, okay, that in order to even make you get the sort that you want, to get the materials you want, it's just not practical. That's the problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've heard, and again, I won't add to it, but I have heard people make that claim here and there over the years, and
You
I've
make
always
the
wondered if
claim
it's
because
true or
it's
not.
easy.
Yeah.
Because when you say it, it just makes it sexier. It's just that simple. The reality is, look, in the end, you as a consumer, you don't know what you're being told is true or not true, right? And a lot of times the people telling you the story don't know whether it's true or not true. They're just being told just like you're being told, and they're being told by somebody above them who's being told by somebody by them. They're so far removed from the actual tobacco and from the manufacturing of the product that they have no like insider knowledge in any way whatsoever. So, I mean, ultimately, when you get right down to it, all of that stuff is nice, but you just have to smoke with your palate. You have to smoke with your nose. You have to just decide what's pleasing to your senses and not pleasing to your senses, because all the other stuff is really, a lot of what gets spun is just bullshit.
Well, that I know. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit talking that goes around. Sometimes you can sniff it out. Sometimes maybe it's not as obvious, but it's always there. There's always some bullshit going around.
But I mean, think about it from our perspective. All cigars are brown and round. What's the differentiator? How do you engage a consumer to even give your product an opportunity to try it? You know what I mean? And look, the retailer, they need some sort of story to explain it to the consumer. And they need something to tell the consumer to make it even click in their head. So I understand why it's that way. But what I'm saying is, when I hear these consumers say, well, I only smoke this wrapper and this is my favorite brand. Yeah, that's the wrapper they say is on the brand, but it's not the wrapper that's actually on the brand. Okay. So they don't know. They only know it because they've been told that's what it is. But it actually isn't that at all.
Right.
Now, it isn't my job to start throwing, darts at the wall or rocks at other people's glass houses. So, I mean, there's no upside to that, right? But at the same time, in the end, the wheat tends to separate itself from the chaff. Consumers figure out what they like, what they don't like, what's good, what's not good. But so much of what we are told as consumers is highly embellished.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that floats around, and we talk a lot about a lot of things that get said and done, and obviously some of it's true and some of it's not, and I think at this point, in a lot of the social media stuff too, where people are a lot more connected with other people and they see what gets said and things that happen. I think people can sniff out some of it
But
too.
even like on my
There's
cigars,
some usual suspects.
I'll get an argument with a consumer that'll tell me, no, it doesn't have that tobacco in it, because they read it on a media site that just published it wrong. You know what I mean? And then cite that as the reference. And I'll be like, dude, I'm the fucking guy that buys the tobacco. I'm telling you that isn't in there. This is a
Right.
mistake.
Of course.
Okay. The guy who wrote this just didn't know. And then they'll find someplace else that it says the same thing. But look at here. Like, well, you have to understand that everybody's just copying and pasting what they're getting from other places. And it's just this repetitive game of telegraph. Or is it not telegraph? Telephone.
Telephone.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. It's just, there's so few people that consumers get to interact with that are actually at the factory level. You know what I mean? And even less so that are actually at the tobacco level. It's just not the way it is because the people that do this work, they're in the factory. They're in the fields, right? I mean, it's just kind of the way it is.
It's funny. We had a cigar last year on our list, and we had mentioned the wrapper. And when we went into talking about the cigar, I had mentioned that I'm very surprised
I
that
remember this.
it is this wrapper because I don't feel that it had those classic flavors, but it was still a great cigar, obviously. And everywhere we checked media-wise, this is the wrapper it had on. And then from the source, we were told, yeah, you guys were totally wrong about that wrapper. That's not the wrapper. And we're like, they were like, why are you telling people that's the wrapper? I'm like, dude, like we literally checked like 5 other credited media sites, and every single one of them also had it listed as this wrapper. And like, I was like, you guys are probably the ones to blame. You probably sent out the press release wrong, and now everyone or maybe one guy put out the wrong press release, and everyone's copying it off them. So, but it's
the guy writing the press
happens.
release is not the guy that actually knows anything about the tobacco.
Yeah, it's like, and like I said, have your palate, have your nose really tell you, because at the end of the day, it's what you like. It's not really what matters what's on there, because they said we like the cigar either way. And it was just funny that I was just like, oh, this isn't, I'm very surprised this doesn't, it didn't taste at all like, but it was very different. I think we said it was broadleaf on there, but it ended up being just a slightly darker Habano. I don't actually remember what the wrapper leaf was.
I remember we thought it was. I think we thought it was broadleaf.
Yeah,
it was.
I don't remember.
It was
what
an LFD
was the
cigar,
LFD.
And then I was talking to Carney, and he was like, "It's funny." He goes, "Everyone on every website is listed it as broadleaf, and it's not even broadleaf."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, really?" And I don't remember what I don't remember what it
the
was,
actual wrapper was. I
but
think it was.
I remember everyone had it as broadleaf, and I went and I even looked.
If Hatfield makes a mistake and they just publish something wrong, they don't copy and paste over a field, and then dozens of websites go to them as the Bible for the references to, oh, this is what it is, and then it just ends up populated everywhere.
Yeah.
But in the end, it is what it is.
What can you do?
The most interesting response that Steve said. In the end, it is what it is. Steve, another question for you, and we're gonna wrap this up soon. But so this might be the last audience question that we bring up. But one of the announcements you made recently, you talked about the Sobremesa line and all that, but you also mentioned that you were going to be discontinued the Cervantes Fino.
Yes.
And the question is, will Steve ever bring that back?
Yes, and I'll milk you for more money.
Good.
Yeah, actually, I've actually already reblended the Cervantes Fino a little bit to make it a little bit more robust, and I have plans for that for 2025.
Now, is that why this was not part of the box transition and all that, and it was kind of discontinued because you already have plans to change?
I want to make a change to it, and I want to elevate the cigar.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just part of it too. Is I can only have 4 SKUs at this point. With the success of Sobremesa Brulee, if you got 4 Sobremesa Brulees, a Brulee Blue, and now a Wagashi, and you have 8 sizes of regular Sobremesa, good God, is the retailer going to give me a whole wall of just Sobremesa boxes? They're not. You know what I mean? So in order for the health of the brand, you have to start making decisions and saying, okay, what are the ones that my purveyors do the best with? What are the ones that most of the consumers smoke? So whereas Cervantes Fino is my personal favorite, it's the least seller of the line. Again, it's because of the size. It's like 6 by 46, 6.25 by 46, right? So it's one of these kind of weird, strange sizes. It's not, it doesn't help the Lancero geeks out because it's just way too big, right? And it's way too skinny for, 95% of the market, right? So it's one of these peculiar kind of sizes that even though it's an exceptional cigar, it gets lost, which then means, only a limited number of retailers decide to stock it on their shelf because even though it's one of the best ones, it just doesn't turn the way the El Americano turns or the way the Robusto Largo turns. So I think for the long-term health of it, it's better to pull it out. I wanted to make a few tweaks to it anyways. I wanted to kind of get it more in the short Churchill kind of strength profile. Okay. And then I'll reintroduce it in 2025. So that for the consumers that really want it, okay, that appreciate it, then it'll be very easy for them to force their retailer to carry it because then it'll be a unique, differentiated SKU, much like, because look, Sobremesa Brulee Blue, if it wasn't Brulee Blue and it was just another size of Sobremesa Brulee, it would be a dog retail. It just would.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the fact that it has that blue band, which lets the retailer explain the story, lets the consumer that's into those kind of formats identify it, zero in on it, try it. It helps to connect the market. It helps to connect the consumer with the cigar in a way that if it's just buried in the line, it would get lost in the line. And retailers are going, no, man, come on. Toro Robusto Gordo, dude. I don't need this skinny shit. Why are you trying to sell me this crap? Right. But when Sobremesa Brulee Blue, and it's special, and it's unique, and it's clearly identifiable, and it's easy for the consumer that likes that style cigar to express to their retailer that they want that particular cigar, then yes, it's viable. You know what I mean? But that same cigar, just as Sobremesa Brulee with the same brown band in the box, guarantee you, I would sell 1/20th of what I sell in Sobremesa Brulee Blue.
It's very interesting. And these are the conversations that I feel like a lot of consumers don't hear a lot about because it's a lot of the times it's, oh, this is what's coming out. This is what it is. Sometimes you get the, hey, we're not making this anymore. And sometimes there's a deep explanation, but a lot of the times it's just as simple like, oh, well, we have to cut back on some stuff, whatever. But they don't really know
most of the people that
why.
you talk to aren't the people that make the decisions.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And most people don't like to share these kind of thoughts out loud because they feel as though they're like some sort of like proprietary secret into the mind of. Here's what I have learned over the last 30 years of kicking everyone's ass. They don't pay attention. Okay. If they would pay attention, okay, they could learn so much, but they don't. Okay. They just simply don't. So you can say it out loud and it just doesn't matter. Okay.
I'm trying not to laugh, but it's just, yeah.
I mean, just think about Drew Estate for a second. How is it that you go from this shitty little company doing a few $1 million a year in business that 8 years later, you're the largest manufacturer of handmade cigars in Nicaragua? How does that occur? Okay. That occurs because all those people that are all the big dogs, they don't give you a second thought. They just look at you like you're a moron, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing. Who cares about them? They'll be gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? They don't know anything, right? So it's their I don't even know, complacency, stupidity, laziness, hubris. I don't know what it is, but there's no way that General and Altadis and these big companies should have ever let Drew Estate become the monster that Drew Estate became. Okay. I mean, they should have been fighting us tooth and nail. Okay. But they didn't. They were just very those are the wacky tobacco flavor guys. They don't know what they're doing. No one's ever going to smoke that Liga Privada. It's too expensive. Plus, nobody wants a real cigar from the acid guys. I mean, this is the way they think. I mean, and then they got all these brand managers with all these sophisticated marketing degrees and all these like PowerPoint presentations and all of these graphs and all this demographic study and boom, boom, boom. And they're paying these guys six figures to tell them what the consumer wants. And not a single fuck one of them is actually a real cigar smoker. Okay. Yeah, they smoke cigars, but they're not really cigar people. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I mean, they just aren't. And God bless them, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
God bless them.
God bless them. I like that.
I mean, because it's crazy to me. So I explained so much of what my strategies are and what my thought patterns are and why I do things just out loud on these podcasts, just posting on Facebook all the time. They don't pay any attention. They don't care.
Yeah. You just keep grinding, Steve. You'll just, just keep on going. You'll get there. You'll get there. They're like, oh, what happened with Steve Saka? He got big. I don't know. We didn't think he was shit. Well, apparently they were wrong. My point was, I think these conversations are great, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people enjoy listening to you on these shows or your interviews in general, is because you are so open about information that I think you're right. A lot of times doesn't get shared, and it really helps the consumer understand, why things are the way they are, why decisions get made, why certain cigars stop getting made, and vice versa, and all that stuff. That some people answer those questions, but they answer them, diplomatically or politically,
because they have bosses that they're afraid that.
Yeah,
I can't believe you said that out loud.
Of course.
How could you tell somebody that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they end up in trouble. Me, who's going to fire me? It's me. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So that also makes it easier. It's one of the reasons why I do mostly look. I don't do a great job at social media. Like I should have one of those, programs that like posts on a schedule, and I should have all sorts of content. I should be making videos and doing some sort of fucking TikTok chicken dance and all this other crap. I don't have time to do that, right? I can't do it. But
I mean, you could, but your cigars might suck.
Right, but when you write stuff online or you publish something or you say something, there's always repercussions to it. There are going to be some people that hear it and it's going to piss them off. There's going to be a retailer that heard something I said tonight and they're like, fuck that guy. I'm not carrying his cigars anymore. I guarantee you. Laughing, you can say, man, I can't believe you said that in the podcast. It's just the way it is, and when you're that social media person that's 27 years old, right, you just end up losing your job, right? And that's what ends up happening is everything just becomes very vanilla and very plain and very safe. You know what I mean? Because what can they do? They can't do that because they'd lose their jobs in a heartbeat.
Of course.
I'd lose my job. If I worked for me, I would fire me. I know that.
That's a good way of putting it. But, you can say whatever you want because you are the boss.
And I think also saying you're bad at social media isn't necessarily true. And like you just said, you're
better than most.
You're not necessarily in the vanilla category of it. If anything, you outshine everyone because you actually take the time to write something, and you personally are there answering it. You're not, you can tell it's not just like, oh, Steve Saka's posting another post at Tuesday at 2:30 again every Tuesday. That automatically does. It's sometimes you go a week and there's not a single post from you, and usually that's because you're in Nicaragua, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks later you show up and then it's like 17 notifications.
It's like a whole damn day of being on Facebook, right? Endlessly. It's like
exactly. So
yeah, no, it does depend on what I'm doing at the given time. The nice thing about I like Facebook because I like to talk and I like to write, and it's something that I can just do quickly.
You don't
on
say.
My phone. And whereas like when you talk about like Instagram, that requires videos and that requires music and that requires editing and that requires a whole skill set that I just don't have. You know what I mean? So my interaction on there is much, much lower than Facebook. But regardless of what everybody tells you, there's more cigar consumers on Facebook today than they are on any of the other platforms, at least the buying market, right? Because it's an age thing. Most hardcore cigar smokers are, they're 40 years old and up. They're much more a Facebook crowd than they are an IG crowd. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as time marches along, it'll change. Okay. Eventually, the biggest consumer base for cigars will be on TikTok 20 years from now, if TikTok's even around. We don't have World War III with the Chinese and it all gets banned, but whatever. You know what I mean? But these things will progress. But I know, and if you talk to the retailers who are engaged in all these different medias, they will tell you that their best connectivity and returns still come out of Facebook and not out of the other things. Yeah, you get a lot more likes, you get a lot more followers the other way, but how many actual paying vested consumers do you get, right? That is still in the Facebook realm. Okay. It won't always be that way, but it is today. And that's good for an old guy like me because I'm just much more comfortable in the Facebook environment than the others. I'm not a video guy. I'm not attractive. I just the whole thing. Now, these are skills that somewhere along the way I'm going to have to improve. I'm going to probably at some point the company keeps growing. I'm going to have to hire someone and maybe not let them run my social media, but I can't have someone offsite. I've tried it a couple, 3 times now to hire a third party who doesn't work at the company to generate content. And it just ends up just kind of like just nonsense. You know what I mean? It's like 7 pictures of a Sobremesa, close up, far away, twisted to the side with some sort of tick tock kind of music, and it's a reel and boom. You know what I mean? It's just like, who gives a fuck? It just doesn't, it just doesn't convey anything. It doesn't tell the consumer anything about the product. Doesn't give them a reason why they should try it, why they may like it. And that's the other thing too, is like when I write about these cigars, I try very hard to describe them in a way that's an honest description. And you'll see, I'll write things. I'll say, hey, if you like this, you'll probably like this. If you don't like this, then this probably isn't your cup of tea. Hey, if you're going to buy Stillwell Star, don't ever buy a whole box. If you've never tried Stillwell Star, buy 1 or 2 singles of each. Try them. You have to go into it with an open mind. This is not a cigar for everybody. You know what I mean? That is not a normal sales pitch by a cigar company, right? Everything is the best. It's the greatest. It's the this. It's the that. You know what I mean? So I try really hard to steer people into the products that I think are going to make the most sense for them because that's the return that I want. I want them to become loyal customers. And if I know this guy smokes A, B, and C, and none of them are this brand, why am I recommending a Brulee for this guy to try? Yeah, if you ever get around to it, give Brulee a go, see if you like it. But if you don't normally smoke milder Connecticut shade cigars, yeah, Brulee is not the place to start with Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. It just simply isn't. I'd much rather you start on something that I think has a chance of suiting what your current palate's likes and dislikes are, because that's in my own best interest as a company to get the consumer connected to the right product. And even when you look at our website, we have a very simple website, but you'll notice on our website, it probably has the most detailed information of almost any cigar website. Okay, now it doesn't have the ingredient disclosures at high detail. That has to do with the whole FDA thing. And, I don't know where that's ultimately going to end up with ingredient disclosures. So I had to start cutting that back. But the flavor notes are pretty spot on. The strength level estimates are pretty spot on. The description of what the product is like are pretty spot on. You know what I mean? And most websites you go to, they don't give you any description at all. It's just, this is our newest, greatest, latest, whatever, boom, boom, boom wrapper, boom, boom, boom binder, boom, 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 here are the sizes, with no details about what the cigar tastes like, how it smokes, how strong it is, no story of why the brand even exists other than to take your money. I mean, what's the purpose of it? Why is it worth taking your money? So I try very hard to give people a lot of consumer information in order for them to make their buying decisions based on, which oddly enough is actually one of the reasons why we tend to do well with some of the younger, newer consumers, because they tend to be more research oriented. So you can go and you can find out a lot about our cigars because there is so much detailed information to look up and to dig into. And that makes it a more appealing product for them too.
I would say there's a lot of truth to that. And again, in a nod to what I said much earlier in the show, that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of years, that in the last couple of years, especially younger generations, like people Mitch in my age, and even slightly older too, they're a lot more in tune with research and
So everybody
everything
bags
digital,
on,
and they're a little more educated now when they go into shops.
everybody bags on millennials, right? It's easy. Okay, let's just leave the Gen Zers out of it right now because they don't even count because they're not even spending money yet. But
True.
millennials, the thing that I love about millennials, which is perfect for a company like us, is that they tend to research everything before they buy it. They try to read about it, they try to learn about it, they try to dig in, they try to find out about it. They look at ratings, they look at reviews, they look
Yep.
at top list, they look at the company's website, they see what information's there, they look at whatever, whether it be Reddit or a Facebook social group or a Discord. They talk about these things, and for us, we're a great brand for them because we're giving all this information out there. Okay, so it's there for them to look at, digest, read about, identify things that you'll notice. Like when I write something, I'll mention these little details about Nakatamale being a farm style cigar, very unique. They don't make cigars like this anymore. Cigars we make now are 5, 7 different tobacco types. Nakatamale is 2 tobaccos, same tobacco for the wrapper and binder. The entire filler is all from one farm. You only have 2 farms involved in it. This is a very traditional way of making cigars that was very common back in the 70s and 80s. It was kind of like towards the tail end of the boom, this kind of show. There's a lot of like mainstay brands in the marketplace that people love today that literally have 3 tobaccos in them. Okay. Now, it doesn't get published that way because consumers demand for there to be complexity. So, ways complexity is you just by listing, there's a lot of shit in it. Okay. But the reality is, there's a lot of very long standing, absolutely great cigar blends that are at the top of their market that are really relatively simple blends, but they're simple blends made out of really good materials that are really worked well, that are put together well. Okay. Look, lobster and butter work. That's 2 things, right? If you don't undercook it, you don't overcook it, you don't scorch the butter, you don't separate the butter, you do it right, you have an amazing thing to eat. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to have 7 things in order to make it viable. Okay. So, and I think that's one of the things. So Naka Tamale is one of my favorite muestras. There's 2 tobaccos in a Naka Tamale. That is it. The whole cigar.
Back to basics.
I was waiting to make sure Steve was going to add. I wait now. When you finish talking, I wait because I don't want to.
Oh, I'll just keep talking.
I know, but I also I wait. I'm like, all right, before I interject.
Stole your thunder.
Yeah, back to basics. And I bet you there's a lot of people that don't even realize that about the tobaccos, the amount of tobaccos, and I to be honest with you, it's something I know about, but I think back and it's like it's not something we really talk about, and like all the shows we've done. I mean, that's a very interesting topic, and now I'm actually thinking about it, and I want to try to expand on that maybe on the Spare Note show. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good information out there, and millennials for sure, much more data oriented. Also, with data in this day and age comes with technology, and every millennial for sure has a phone, a computer, and social media. I mean, virtually, there's they have everything they need right there to learn anything they could about anything they wanted to. So for sure, the consumer base is much more educated nowadays. And speaking to retailers, I've heard that they're talking about, hey, we're getting younger people coming in. They're much more in tune. They kind of know what they want. They come in looking for stuff. We don't really have to direct them. They kind of like, I already know what I want.
But you also see it with retailers. So Jay was watching on. I don't know if he's still
Yep.
watching. I can't tell. But Jay is a tobacconist. He educates his consumers about what they're smoking, right? He pays attention to what's happening in the marketplace. He conveys that information. There's many retailers that just sit on their ass and just buy products that are out of a distributor catalog. They have no interaction with the manufacturer. They never watch a podcast. They never open a half wheel article. They don't do anything. They flip through Cigar Aficionado because it gets sent to their shop for free. You know what I mean? They are so disconnected from the industry and the products and what's currently happening. And you see it in the makeup of their shops. And they sit around and they bitch constantly about, oh, business isn't good. The internet's ruining my business. Boom, 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 boom. It's nonsense. They're ruining their businesses. They're just not staying up with the trends. They're not engaged with the industry. They're not paying attention to what consumers are interested in. They're not providing customer service. They're not providing the education. And even more importantly, the curation of connecting their customer with a product that makes sense for that particular customer, because Dunbarton is not going to be perfect for everyone. Okay, there's different customers for different products. And if you are an engaged tobacconist, this is what your job is to connect the two, and for the guy to feel good when he gives you his money, so that he doesn't feel as though, oh, I'm going to go online because I can get it for $15 cheaper here because my guy doesn't do anything, so I might as well save the $15. Right? Right? Honestly.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And if you just feel like you're walking to a freaking 7-Eleven, okay, well, yeah, why wouldn't I go down the street to buy my milk? Okay, if it's $1 cheaper a gallon down the street. Of course I am. But if I got a guy that knows about the cows, knows about the milk, knows I got these 8 different brands of milk, and this one's a little creamier, and this one's a little lighter, and this one's from grass-fed cows, and this, you know what I mean? When you provide this extra service to your customer, and particularly with your age group, it's even more important because you guys actually give a fuck about this stuff. You pay attention to it. So
yeah, your people are more like, yeah, just give it to me and let's go.
So,
I guess not that that's a bad thing, but you know, it's just not really how it is anymore. So, but no, all good points. All good points, Steve. It's, you know, every time we get to talk, there's so much that comes out, you know, and it's all good information too. And I mean that. I'm not like, you know, it's true. I mean, you bring up a lot of topics that don't normally get brought up. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think, like you said before, you're the only one that actually kind of has the balls to say things or gives a shit about certain
I
topics.
also think most people in my business don't think about it.
That's true too.
They just don't give the time.
Yeah, you give a fuck.
I don't think that they even understand their customers.
Here's a comment here.
I think they don't understand their product, nor do they understand their customer. A lot of them. I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is.
There's a comment here. A place where I bought my first cigar in Denver refused to evolve. After the boom died down, the big brands lost steam and boutique brands became more popular. They shuttered. Sad. But guys got to stay with it to be a real tobacconist.
Well, and you know, to be fair as well, as it's not just the cigar industry. You see it in the beer industry, even now the bourbon industry. It's like you said, it's a generational thing that's starting to take influence into the market, and so many industries are now feeling that change, feeling that shift in how consumers want to consume a product and to know about a product for sure.
Particularly when these products are so much more expensive than they used to be.
Yeah.
You want to make a more conscientious buying decision. You know, heck, when cigars used to be $2 a piece, who gives a flip, right? But now when you're looking at the average price on the shelf being $12, well, you know what? Yeah, I want a little extra kissy with that. You know what I mean? I just do. I mean, it's just, and you say, and this is the thing, you know, particularly when I have this whole price conversation, I always point to these retailers that there are retailers in some pretty high tax states that have managed to grow some very successful businesses that are on the grow. Okay. And they are climbing, they're not just fighting the internet prices, they're fighting their own state. You know, 25, 40%, 60%, 70%. But yet they have viable, growing retail shops because they're providing something to their customer that's just more than the sum of its parts.
Well,
Exactly.
Jay Davis is still here, and he said some people just whine and complain. Steve's right. We don't have a website, and we do just fine because we spend the time with our customers when they enter the store. And we ship all over the world because of word of mouth, and we spend time with those customers over the phone and internet. Not against having a website, just not there yet.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Websites aren't
You
cheap,
know what?
I'll tell you that.
We're approaching one of our, if not the longest regular time show ever. We're approaching the Coop 3-hour mark, and
Ooh,
I
yeah.
know, we're getting into Coop territory.
everybody, thank you everybody for sticking around. But I think we're getting close to wrapping it up here.
I'm willing
And,
to tap out.
Yeah, you brought up some amazing points, and I think everyone learned about most of all of your cigars tonight. New stuff, old stuff, and
Steve really earned his lunch
things-
tonight. This was good.
things that are going to be coming out.
He gave us way more than people normally do.
Yep.
Oh
Do
man.
you want to take us out, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean Steve, look, I didn't even look at the time. It's we're getting there. And I know we could go on forever, but all good things must come to an end. So I'm gonna wrap up the show soon. But first of all, I think it's so important for me to say is thank you for being here, and thank you for your
Right.
time. I know
Appreciate
you're a
the
busy guy.
Yeah, but I'm not too busy for this. What was I going to do anyways?
Yeah,
I was going to.
Smoke cigars and drink
Yeah,
drink some whiskey.
I gotta. I think I got some back episodes of Survivor to watch or some nonsense.
Now,
I'm like in season 14 still or something.
the reruns. The other thing I do is I hope that you feel better about your time on the Smokin Tabacco show. I hope this was a rewarding experience this time for you.
I felt
personally.
more animated, so I think that was good.
I think you were more animated because you know
Yeah.
what, you didn't have to reserve the energy for the leader effect. You were just like, this is it, let it out. So, it was good. This was good. A lot of good points got brought up too. This was a fun show. But Steve, just stay with us as we end the show. Don't leave us yet. Everyone who's watching and listening at home, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We can't be here without you. So thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're new to this show, we hope you stick around. Don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere you can get your podcast, on all the podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify.
Dude, you're supposed to say that at the beginning before you lose viewers.
I know. But you know what, Steve? We
YouTube
got
101, dude. And I'm shitty at this gig.
You know what, Steve? You're right.
I did the like and subscribe pitch like right from the beginning.
You're right, Steve. I fucked up in front of Steve. Damn it. All my dreams have been broken now. And as always, don't forget to go to smokintabacco.com. That's right, the brand new and improved smokintabacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry. That's going to do it for our show this week with Steve Saka. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Have a good night.